Hello and welcome to the first episode of Not Quite Cutting Edge. Um, this is a podcast about I'm not quite sure yet what it's going to lead into, but hopefully it's going to be a recurring thing where we discuss different aspects of not quite high-end gaming, not quite casual gaming, somewhere in between. With me I have Luria. She will introduce herself because I think that's better than me introducing her. Oh, wait, you didn't come through. Hang on, let me fix that. I'm not quite sure why. Oh, because I forgot to unmute you. Now, go again.
Are you not going to introduce me at all?
Hmm?
Am I doing the whole?
Yeah,
Okay,
go.
I'm Luria of not quite cutting edge skill for 14 years.
Yeah. And we're going to be discussing raiding and guild leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to admit I'm very nervous. So
That's fine, I'm not.
I guess that helps. Yeah. Okay, so I guess the best thing to do is just jump straight in and just
maybe give some background to that. Do you want that?
Yeah, I guess you should maybe explain where you started and how you progressed to where you are now.
Okay. I didn't play for a year and a little bit more. Oh, I properly started playing game in early 2007 when TBC had come out. And after I got to max level, I raided my very first guild that I had joined while leveling up. It was a casual family guild. And they had an officer raiding, and he I don't know, tried to make raid happen, and then they tried to make another raid happen, etc. And the raids were but it was still and I thought they were fun, even if anything. We went into Karazhan, 10 man, anything, hardly killed the trash. I thought it was fun. Then that guy was interested in. I don't remember how long he was there for, but he after left that guild. But some people still raiding, or like a group of us still thought it was fun, so the guild continued to organize raids, but in I would say in a less organized way than when that officer was the guild leader. And somehow they had random officers supposedly being the raid leader then for every raid, but I went to every raid, and at this point I was tanking, so I started being a person who said the the tactics to everybody who was on the voice chat. They had a voice chat. However, not everybody was joining the voice chat, but I said it to everybody who was on the voice chat. Okay, this is how the boss is. This is how. I mean, we had tactics for every single trash group. So I was a person who tactics for every single trash group, and then who said the tactics for the bosses. So I guess that's. But I wasn't the raid leader. Then it stopped working with that guild, and the people liked raiding left. And then we made this guild, and to begin with, it was just a joke. This guild being Lazy Peon Tavern on Silver Moon EU. And this was just a temporary joke guild because we didn't think we were 10 people even. So we were just going to be in a guild while we decided what other guild to join. Are we going to join a raiding guild? What are we going to do? And then all of a sudden we were 10 people because and we were 10 people from the old guild, from the family guild that joined our new guild. And so then we started raiding Karazhan and Sulaman, and it was fun. And then all of a sudden we were a raiding guild, I guess. And
Okay.
I was the raid leader, and the character that was the GM of the joke guild was my rogue alt. So that made me the GM as well. Although to begin with, once we decided to have I don't know if you wanted to ask a question there. You sounded like you were about to say something.
No. Carry on. This is
Okay. So we first decided that we were going to be a democracy in the new. Everybody was going to get to have a say. All of the 10 of us, or 11 of us, or whatever we were in the beginning, we were all going to have equals, and we weren't going to make any decisions unless everybody was agreeing. But that soon work at all because everybody doesn't want to have opinions, or at least, yeah, no, that's my opinion. It doesn't work with a democracy guild because everybody doesn't want to have opinions. So at the end, it was just opinions, or only maybe me with opinions. I'm an opinionated. Very long wine. Yes.
Yeah, I know this.
Yes. Okay, so then I became the. We had several officers to begin with, and I was one of the officers. First, gonna have maybe we should have some officers for show. Like if new people show up, like when we start recruiting, should we can't say that we're a democracy guild because we can't let them decide. Like there has to be a period before they get to participate in deciding. So we were gonna have like mock officers or fake officers. I was one of the fake officers, but then I was the only one with opinion. I was one of the fake officers, and the other fake officers
That progressed quickly.
have and didn't really want to be officers or disappeared. So since Cataclysm, I have been the
Main
only
officer.
officer in this, and the GM and the raid leader.
Yeah.
That is that. And this guild is I don't know, like a medium core guild, depending on what you mean by casual or hardcore and all of those things. But we're a guild that raids mythic, but we never get cutting edge. We get about halfway through the mythic bosses, and then depending on how long the tier is, we might get further or we might get less. And depending on if we're having problems, because it's up and down. Sometimes you don't have problems with numbers, and sometimes you have a little bit of problem with numbers. But we've been raiding every tier since, and the only breaks we've had is like in a few weeks for every new expansion.
Yeah.
So, is that it?
Yeah, that's fine. That actually transitions quite nicely into the first set of questions, which is when you're looking for a guild, especially a new guild and things like that, how do you progress into recruitment and things like that? Where's the best place to start looking for people? Say you have a core group of, say, 10 people and you want to push towards that mythic or push to get the classes that you want. What's the best avenue to find new players?
I mean,
or what avenues do you
I
use?
cannot say I have experience of that, because we started as a 10-man guild and we had the 10 people to begin with. So first I want to say I don't have experience. I can guess what would be a good avenue, but I don't have the experience of that. And we made an attempt we started recruiting in the summer of 2008. We started recruitment, and we thought that we were going to be a 25-man guild because this was still during T. So we could only raid Karazhan and Sulaman as a 10-man guild, and we wanted to try Gruul Slayer and Magtheridon and Black Temple and
Serpent Shrine and the Eye and stuff like that.
So we had an idea about that we had to be a 25-man guild. We opened recruitment, and we had a very odd experience, I think, that hardly any other guild has, and that was that we got 15 recruits within 2 days or something like that. So we were a 25-man guild within 2 days. And the reason why that happened was that we had, prior to opening, we had 2 people had friended someone in our guild, or who someone knew in the guild, and they had asked to join us and raid with us, 10 man then at that point. And so they had already like joined 4 weeks earlier or something like that, and we're already full members because our recruitment wasn't really open, so whatever. And they had been the leader of a Swedish guild on our realm, apparently, which I didn't know about. So when we opened recruitment, the leftovers of that Swedish guild, which apparently had been a raiding guild, all wanted to join because I guess they wanted to follow their leaders. And so we had loads of people. Yeah, we just had like a whole raid team straight away.
Okay. That seems rather lucky, but
that was rather. I think it's very unusual.
yeah.
And we accepted all of them for trial, and I think we failed 2 of the trials, and otherwise all of them got full. And it was a shit show. It was completely a really good lesson for us that you should never mass recruit, because we ended up being 2, or at least not mass recruit from within the same.
One sec, you're supposedly cutting out at the end of sentences, so I'm just gonna quickly.
Am I cutting out?
Yeah, I'm just gonna try and fix it. It's because I've got. Sorry, that was my fault.
Should I talk while you do this? Or should I stop talking now?
Okay, it should be fine now. I've just got to be a bit more careful. I can't bash my desk.
Well, the people that we recruited ended up being a group within our guild, and the old people, us, ended up being another group within the guild. And we didn't really get along. They wanted to talk Swedish in guild chats, and talk Swedish in party chat, and talk Swedish in raid chat, or write in Swedish on our forum, or things like that. So they had a difficulty adjusting to the fact that we weren't a Swedish guild, and we didn't really like them that much for that reason, and then maybe for other reasons. And they probably didn't like us. We weren't as friendly as we should have been, or as accommodating, or as, yeah. So we ended up being 2 groups, and luckily that group, like the new expansion came, some of them didn't come online at all to level their characters. Some of them left the guild to go into another guild and level, like they sort of disappeared when the new expansion came out. And then we tried for a little while longer to be a 25-man guild. We tried to recruit in the new expansion towards being a 25-man guild, and then we decided, why are we doing this? Why don't we just stay as a 10-man guild then? Because Nextremas had a 10-man option, right?
Yeah, that was Wrath of the Lich King, right?
Yeah, so we gave up on the 25-man fairly soon into Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah.
And then we just stayed a 10-man guild.
I guess that's a good example of, because now you don't have that option. If you want to raid the best content, you have to be a 20-man guild.
Yeah.
And I guess
I think that was a good move by Blizzard, by the way.
Okay, but then I was going to ask, was that a challenge to go from 10-man to 20-man? And do you feel that maybe some of the smaller, quieter raiders within that raid team sometimes get lost by some of the more vocal, more...
It was a huge challenge to go from 10 to 20, and I think it was a huge challenge for everyone at that time, because the majority of the guilds on all of the realms, when Warlords of Draenor was coming out, that's when the change happened, from that there was 10 and 25-man guilds, and then we were all going to go to 20-man guilds. The thing is that most realms, I think, at least our realm, had a few 25-man guilds and then a lot of 10-man guilds, and all of the 10-man guilds needed 10 more people.
So some 10-man guilds died, and some 25-man lost.
Just maybe they didn't even need to lose it. Maybe they needed to lose 3 people or 2 people or something. But the people that they had, they just needed to lose 1 or 2, and then they were still kind of fine.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 5 if all of them had 100% attendance. They needed to lose 5 people. But if they had any kind of fluctuation with who was coming to the raids, they could maybe even stay the same raid team. If you're a 25-man guild, going down to 20.
Yeah.
Whereas we needed to double up. So half of the 10-man guilds had to die for the other half of the 10-man guilds to absorb them, and that didn't happen quickly or at all, I would say. It took a really long time in the beginning of Warlords of Draenor for guilds to die.
Yeah, because everyone wants to keep their guild going. Everyone wants to push that slightly up.
I mean, exactly. Everybody gets close. Like if you have, we have 18 people, we have 90 people, we're almost there. You know, you think you're close, so you keep trying, and then all the guilds are sitting around with 17 people or 18 people and really trying.
Yeah, like, maybe we can kill the first boss with 19 people, and that way maybe we'll get that 20th person.
Exactly, stuff like that. Yeah. It was Warlords of Draenor was really, really rough, and there was nobody to recruit. Like if you looked back on the previous expansion, Miss Pandaria, before this change was announced or anything, like after the change was announced, it probably changed. But when we were like in the middle of Miss Pandaria, guilds, let's say that they had 5. I mean, it wasn't called Mythic at that time. It was called Heroic and Normal.
Yeah.
The heroic mode was what Mythic is today, and the normal mode was what Heroic is today. And there wasn't the easy modes. The easy normal mode of today wasn't there. That was introduced in the end of Miss Pandaria with it was called Flex. It was called in the last raid. They added a Flex mode. Yeah. And then when the next expansion came, they changed the name of Flex mode to Normal, changed the name of Normal to Heroic, and changed the name of Heroic to Mythic. But so guilds before that who were heroic guilds instead of mythic guilds, they were called heroic, like they were raiding heroic content. If they had killed 5 bosses, they were basically looking for other people who had killed 5 bosses. They were progressing on the 6th boss. You know, they wanted to recruit another guy who was also progressing on the 6th boss, or at least had killed 4 bosses or something like that. There was they wanted someone who was close to their progress. And then the next expansion came out, and they could find it. I mean, they looked for that, and they also found those people. That's why they didn't lower their requirements much. And we were looking for people who were close to our progress when we were recruiting for our 10-man guild at that time. We were looking for people close to our progress. Fast forward into Warlords of Draenor, when everybody went to 20-man guild, and we were looking for anyone.
Yeah, just anyone.
For anyone. Like guilds above us were lowering their requirements to, like, if they had killed 9 mythic bosses, they would accept people who had killed 3 mythic bosses or something. And if we were on 3 mythic bosses, then we were looking at, I mean, we recruited I remember the lowest that we went, I think, was a guy that had killed 21 bosses less than us. And that's like a huge
difference, yeah.
Never done and by that I mean he had killed like 3 bosses on normal, while we had killed, I think it was 12 bosses in that raid. So we had killed a few mythic bosses, and he had killed a few normal bosses.
Yeah.
And that was the difference between us. What was the question?
I was just saying, was there challenges moving from 10
huge
to 20? Yeah,
huge challenges for all the guilds that were going from 10-man to 20-man. I think that's universal. I don't think that was just us. There's definitely problems for all guilds at that time. Now, wait, you had a question before. What is it like to be a guild with like 10 friends who are trying to become a 20-man guild? And then I said I didn't have the experience really of that. I think it's always hard to be fewer people and try to make I understand if you're 10 people, it's hard to join another guild.
Yeah.
Nobody is looking for 10 people. So, but I also think it's really hard to be a guild where you haven't killed anything.
Okay.
And then get to, like, okay, we want to recruit to go to Mythic. And we're all good enough players, but you have to get 10 people who believe in that, in that dream or whatever, or believe in sure, we can do it. And then they're all going to be equally good as you, and all of it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to recruit.
Do you find is there any disadvantages to the larger raid teams, such as like smaller players, the ones who are very quiet, getting drowned out, and maybe not feeling quite as interested because they're not part of the more vocal group.
I think there's
Whereas
a lot
within 10 man,
Yeah.
you're a very tight knit group. You're such a small group compared to 20 man or 25 man.
Um, I think there's a lot of people who miss 10-man raiding. Yes, maybe for those reasons. It's less rowdy. It's less people to keep track of. It's easier. It's easier, obviously, to keep a 10-man group together than it is to keep a 20-man group.
Yeah.
Because obviously, depending on what your rules are, in our guild, we don't have 100% attendance. So we need to have a bigger raid group than 20. And I think most guilds, I would guess, most raiding guilds don't have a 100% attendance rule.
Yeah. Do you also find it's more personal responsibility? Do you find, compared to now with the 20 man, compared to the 10 man, do you find that you have more personal responsibility within a 10 man group? That it's a lot harder to be bad in a 10 man group because you had such a small condensed group that if you lost one person, it basically meant that you were down a 10th of your team, compared to now you're down a 20th of your team. It's easier to recover in 20 man. Or do you feel like...
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Like it was like in a 10-man group, if one person dies, it's probably a wipe because that's such a big percentage of your group. Like you can't do the boss with
a 10th of your team missing.
Yeah, with like, one less DPS.
You might get a res off, DPS. But again,
it's harder to be really bad. If you have a really bad guy, it's harder to be in a 10-man. I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, this mode, so perhaps it's not a point. But the smaller the group you have, if you're a guild that raids only heroic at this point, then I guess the more, if you have a bad person, the smaller the group is, the more that bad person affects you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, when you were raiding 25 man, because I still raided 25 man. Everybody still raided 25 man because it was really easy to pug on our server in those days. Like in I would say in Wrath of the Lich King, it was felt like it was the most pugging, or maybe that was just because I did the most of my pugging in Wrath of the Lich King. But in Wrath of the Lich King, all the modes were separate saves. So if you raided because if you raided the raid on 10 man, you can then also raid the same raid on 25 man.
Yeah.
And that didn't exist later because 10 and 25 man became the same save.
They shared the same lockout. Yeah.
Yeah. So you couldn't do that later.
And 25 man in Wrath of the Lich King also dropped better loot compared to the 10 man.
Yes.
There was the...
Whereas in Cataclysm it dropped the same
loot, but there was more of it.
Just less of, was more of it in 25 man, obviously. More drops.
So you wanted to do the 25 man to get the...
It was obviously better to be a 25 man game.
Yeah.
Because
you were generally slightly better off. But there were some bosses that were easier on 10 man.
Extremely large loot tables. And for 10 man guilds, it could be really hard. Like we had a period of time in Firelands, which only had, 7 bosses? Am I correct? Or did it have 8 bosses?
I think it's 7. I'm not 100% though. I can check.
5, 6, 7. It has 7 bosses, that raid. And 7 bosses. And I mean, it was because they planned to have another raid at the same time, right? They planned.
That got scrapped.
Manifest. So all the loot for the whole, and this was the period of time when like there would be main loot with only loot would have int on it, and then it was only for the int people, or loot would have agility on. Like it didn't change. Like now it changes. It can be agility or int depending. Like you can have the same loot, and swap specs, and then the same that loot gets agility on it. And this was before that happened. So if the loot would have a main stat on it, and that would mean obviously that, like if a mail loot dropped that had int on it, then that was for shamans.
Yeah.
And if plate loot with int drop, that was for holy paladin only, etc. So we had a period of time in Firelands where we had 3 or 4. Well, we had 3 or 4 plate. I think we had 2 plate tanks and 2 plate DPS, or even 3 plate DPS. So we had 4 or 5 people that wanted strength plate.
Yeah.
And we had 3 months where we didn't have any
because they hadn't distinguished them between, they hadn't merged the imp plate and the strength plate together either then, so you had the two separate.
But they didn't get any loot. They didn't get tier items. Like tier items existed in that raid, so they got tier items. They got necks and cloaks, but they didn't get any like shoes or gloves or pants or belts or anything like that. Between July and October, we didn't have. I remember that we didn't have any strength plate drop at all.
Probably very frustrating. Yeah. I have experiences with not getting loot. Like I had a whole tier where I never had a shield, as I play tank and I never got a shield on my paladin for a whole tier. It is frustrating, and I can imagine that if
in my guild,
yeah, so I do. But like if you, I can understand the frustrations that. Yeah. Especially, I feel like that was a mistake by Blizzard to have such large loot tables in them raids. It worked for the 25-man. There were lots of problems with that raid, with like the 10-25-man difference, with the loot tables being huge and the legendary acquisition rates and things like that were so different between 10 and 25.
Yeah. Have we strayed now? Maybe from the top though.
A little bit, but I thought it was interesting. Just how the difference between 10 and 25 basically is, and whether people get lost in the 25 in the 20 man.
I think the 20 man was a good decision because sometimes it was really hard for Blizzard to tune between 25 man and 10 man. Sometimes 25 man was harder than 10 man. Sometimes 10 man was harder than 25 man on various bosses. Like I remember at the beginning of Cataclysm, for example, the first boss on Heroic at the time, but what we call Mythic now, that everybody went to was Halfus in
Descent of Twilight, or Bastion of Twilight.
Yeah, in Bastion of Twilight. Yeah. That was an easy boss as far as I understand for 25 man.
Yeah.
But oh my god, the micromanage, like the little things we had to do as a 10-man guild to like make that, or the old 10-man guild had to do to make that work. Yeah. Like we had like the pull in the beginning. We had to have a warlock who taunted one of the dragons, had to run across the room to the warlock. Then the warlock had to, I don't know, go away through some person portal. Then it had to run after the person again, and then the tank could taunt because we needed that period of time because the other dragon hit too hard otherwise, because he had to tank that tank had to tank 2 or 3 dragons or whatever the fuck it was. So we needed like a period of time where one of the dragons was just running around for us to even be able to do the beginning of the fight. We had like stupid solutions to deal with things that were happening in the fight. Yeah.
Because that boss was very easy on 25 man because you could just 3 tank it without losing any DPS. Yeah, but
it was a DPS
check. Yeah.
The thing is that the boss was a DPS check. So DPS check boss, we could, as a 10-man group, you couldn't do that with 3 tanks. Yeah. Because then you didn't make the DPS check. So we had to have only 2 tanks. But we had, and I think we used Paladin Bubble is what we used on that boss to make it work as well. Like one of the tanks got. There was supposed to be a tank swap with one of those dragons, but we just kept bubbling that tank, a blessing or protection or whatever it was called. Yeah. We just kept putting it on so that he would lose the stacks. So he would, you would have a cancel aura macro, as that tank would have a cancel aura macro, and then remove it and then keep tanking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so there is a big.
So this is beside the point, but yes, 10-man groups had their own challenges, and 25-man groups had their challenges, and I think it was a good thing to take the hardest
to merge it down
and merge it and make it 20-man. I think it was good. I miss 10-man in a way, though. Still. Yeah. And I'm sure some people might miss 25-man.
I'm seeing a lot of I miss 10-mans, so I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people that raided 10-man miss 10-man. But I think at the same time, a lot of them understand the changes of why they went from 10 to 20. Similar to the way that you say things.
It's hard for them to balance. I assume is the reason.
Yeah.
Why they changed it. Because they always had to make 2. They had to check the 25-man was working, and then they had to check the 10-man was working. And then there were ways they couldn't do the bosses, right? Yeah. Like if they had an idea about a boss where you needed someone needed to mind control something, for example, they had to think of 10-man. Oh, but maybe they don't have a priest in the group. that means they can't, like, they had to continuously
Yeah.
think of maybe they don't have
I think they
the
had a boss
opportunity.
like that where
And now
you
in
had
Sweden, I think they assume that everybody has
has
that all the classes are available.
yeah. But I think they had a boss with a mind control, didn't they? Add like usable items so that you didn't need a priest or something like that. Like there was a boss in Bastion of Twilight where you used an item off to the side and it worked like a priest mind control, and you only had them in 10-man and not 25-man.
Oh, that's possible that we had that. I don't even.
I have vague memories. Maybe I made it up in my head, but I just have vague memories.
Was that on Shogal?
I
Because
think
I
it
remember
may
there
have
was
been
something decided on
Cho'Gao.
Shogal. Because there was nothing on Halfus, there was nothing on the two
Yeah.
dragons, whatever they were called. There was nothing that I can remember on the side of
The
elemental
Ascendants. Yeah.
those 4 bosses. But there was something on Shogal that was on
Yeah,
the
I
side.
think it may have been mind control so that you didn't need a priest in 10-man. Or something like that. It was, I believe it was something like that.
Probably. But if I think that some people who are quiet gets drowned out in, yeah, I think they might.
Yeah,
They might get drowned
they
out
get
in
lost
a 25-man
in
guild, and they might get lost in a 20-man guild as well.
Yeah. But you also find that personal performance can be lower within a 20-man compared to a 10-man.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, of course it can be. If one person dies, it's less of a big deal.
Yeah. I guess that actually moves quite nicely into loot within the different, like as we said, the 20 and 10, 25 and 10 had very different, like in Firelands, the big loot tables definitely went against the 10-mans because there was big loot tables and less loot dropping. But now
exactly, because there could be whole days where everybody needed loot.
Yeah.
But for several bosses in a row, we were just disenchanting loot because it was the wrong loot.
It was the same loot that you had last week.
Sorry, we didn't have like an
Ellie Shaman or
Resto Shaman in our group. Okay, so all of that loot we get disenchant.
Yeah.
All right, we don't have a Holy Paladin. Okay, we disenchant all of that loot. We don't have a, whatever it was.
So saying that, do you think the move away from master loot to personal loot was actually a benefit? That maybe if the change was in earlier, that maybe the differentiation between 10 and 25 wouldn't have been as necessary. That they could have kept these bigger loot tables, but with personal loot it wouldn't have mattered as much.
I haven't thought about that before, but yeah, I guess that could have been, if they had added personal loot back then, that would have made more sense, yes.
Because, again, I don't know what your opinion is, whether you prefer master loot over personal loot, or whether you actually...
I personally like that we had to change, that we were forced to change from master loot to personal loot. I was not a fan of that in the beginning of BFA. I think it's worked for our guild. Like, I think it's alright, but yeah, it's not my favorite. But
okay.
It works.
We make it work.
Because when it's master looter, you had like people could say, yeah, I don't, now you already need to have received the loot in that slot to be able to share the loot that you got. And it could be that you get a loot, oh, I got this thing, it's not actually, it's a higher eye level, I don't want to wear it, but I can't trade it,
Yeah.
And in the past, those loots would have been we could have handed them out differently.
Yeah.
And we never had a problem with loot, I don't think, in our guild. So I didn't find master loot to be a problem. I assume the reason they decided to change was, I think it was with pugs in mind that they changed that.
Okay.
Is what I'm guessing.
Possibly.
Because it did stop people from stealing loot from other, like, I mean, ninjaing loot can't happen anymore, for example. I mean, that was a thing that happened before.
It takes a very organized group now to ninja loot. Like, you need to be an organized raid group to be.
And you can't ninja loot at all.
You can still ninja loot in the fact that if you say, oh, all of the items within the raid are going to be rolled that nobody needs, similar to the way, well, maybe we should actually explain that first, the way that we deal with loot that we don't need within our raids at the moment, I mean,
technically, a loot that I get, I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to be crass, a loot that I get, I can decide whatever the fuck I want to do with it. If I want to
Yes.
give it to my friend, I should be able to give that to my friend, and there shouldn't. If another person, if I'm in a pug right now and I give it to a friend, even if another person was like, "Well, it was a bigger upgrade for me," I should not have to give. Like, I think it's perfectly fair
But
and above board that I give it to my friend instead of giving it to the person who needed it more. I don't think I need to ask everyone, "Hey, highest roll
but
wins. This
but
is the item I got."
if you're joining a pug group and it's stated that all loot that you don't need are being,
People wouldn't follow that anyways, right?
yeah, I guess
All
it's
loot that you don't need, whisper it
should
to the
be
leader
and will
and
be rolled
say
out.
that, and it will be rolled out. Highest roll wins. If you have a friend that needs the item, you're never going to whisper the leader. You're going to give it to the friend.
I
And
guess
I still think that's above board because that's what it is right now. It's personal loot. That's what they have decided.
decided. Yeah.
It's my loot. So then I decide if I want to roll it out to the group, like link it to that leader and roll it out, or if I want to give it to my friend. I think that's perfectly all right in the current setting of the loot system. However, that's not how we do it in our guild.
No.
You're not allowed to just pass it to your buddy if you didn't need it. Instead, you're supposed to whisper it to me,
Yeah.
and then we link the loot, and then people get to announce that they want it. In our guild, they announce it by doing a roll, but it's not
Yeah.
highest roll wins who win it. We have a list. We use Suicide Kings, which was the loot system that we had before.
Yeah.
Like since Wrath of the Lich King, we've used.
So
Suicide
never tried any other loot system.
We try Nade or Greed to begin, like, highest roll wins.
Yeah.
But the problem with highest roll wins is that sometimes the same person will be lucky and win several times in a
Yeah.
row.
And then that feels bad.
And then one person goes home with 5, like one of the rogues go home with 5 loot and the other rogue goes home with 0.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel fair. And then next week, let's say that the rogue is again like it can be several weeks with you not getting any loot really.
Yeah.
Or the only item that you won was the shit item. That was the worst item that you didn't really want as much as all the other items that you didn't win. It can feel really unfair if one person wins more than others. Like we had a guy who continuously wanted to re-roll all the time, and it really felt like we needed a different loot system. A lot because of him, because if you're on your if you're on a 4th character now in the same tier, you're now changed to your 4th character, and a loot is dropping that someone has been waiting for a long time, and you just have no shame.
Yeah.
Like the other person rolls for the loot, they've been on the same character the whole tier. I'm on my 4th character. That loot drops and I go, "Oh, I want that too," and then I win the roll. And I don't say anything to the other guy. Like I don't say, "Hey, actually, you've been waiting for so long. You can have it."
Yeah.
That guy didn't do that. He never did that. He just took the loot.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
He never considered other people in that way, and it just felt really. I don't know. It just people were getting upset.
Yeah. I can understand that. So if we circle back
Why we
round.
started having a loot system in the first place. Now with personal loot, I don't know if you need to have a loot system on the side.
Yeah.
We still think that we want to have a loot system on the side for the unwanted loot, because if we don't have a loot system for the unwanted loot, then maybe exactly that will happen. Sometimes there's a lot of unwanted.
I was gonna say I feel I get quite a few pieces of loot from the unwanted loot. It may not be a majority, but I definitely get quite a few pieces, and it would feel really bad if the other leather classes, because I play leather at the moment, if all the other leather classes won so much more than me just because they rolled higher all the time, would feel bad.
So our loot system is sort of a turn taking.
Yeah.
If you and me are the only leather, and something
I have an example of
something happens that both of us
our loot system. If you want to explain our current loot system,
we have it's like a long list of names, and the longer you don't get loot, the higher you end up on the list. Yeah, you have you have that.
I have an example on screen at the moment.
Like the longer you have been on the list. So in that example, Teldrin hasn't gotten loot in a really long time, and so he's highest on the list. And Luria has apparently recently gotten loot in the first. No, wait,
Luria's
stop.
rolling.
Never mind, I was fairly high up on the list.
Yeah.
Okay, but Kalen and Skirv are the 2 people who have gotten loot most recently.
Yeah.
And then the people who are in the raid get we highlight them on the list, so they are the ones who are active, kind of thing. That's how the loot system works.
Yeah.
And then when someone wins something, they fall to the bottom and everybody else goes up.
Yeah.
But the people who aren't in the raid, they stay stationary in their places. So you can't miss a raid. Like, you can't be away for 6 weeks and come back and be at the top of the list. Like, if Kalen, in this case, if he would continue not being there for the raids, he's going to still be in 9th place when he comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the loot system that we used. As a 10-man guild, it worked fine.
Mm-hmm.
As a 20-man guild, it still worked fine. When they changed it in BFA that we had to have personal loot, we kept this for the unwanted loot.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to, you could have more than one. I mean, in the past, when we had Master Looter, we had more than one list. We'd have one list for need loot, like for the loot that you wanted for your main spec, and then we would have another list that we used for people rolling for off specs. If nobody wanted it for main specs, it was the same thing. Sometimes somebody would gear their off spec really quickly, and then someone else, well, I didn't get a single item for my off spec. So okay, so then we had a separate list for that then. Like, okay, you guys wanted for off spec. Who got off spec most recently? Okay, person A. Okay, but then person B will get it now.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It was. We had very few problems with loot. I can just say that. I really liked the Suicide King's loot system.
Suicide,
and personal as well. I would have never wanted us to have a personal loot system. Sorry, what am I saying?
Personal.
Subjective loot system is what I meant to say. It was non-subjective. Like if
like
we ever had a problem
council
with the loot system, we could just change a rule in the loot system. It was not my fault. Whereas if we would have had loot council, it would have been my fault if we did an error with the loot system.
Yeah, and like if you gave the best item to somebody who had already had it recently, it feels bad for the person who then loses out. Yeah, you get annoyed at the person. Whereas now, if somebody gets 2 items and you feel like you're cheated, you get annoyed at the system.
In that case, yes.
Yeah.
You would have been annoyed at the system. Like if you and me are the only leather people, something drops, you're higher on the list, and it was like a really good item. And then again, something drops, like later on in the raid, something drops that is kind of a smaller upgrade, and then I win that. And then at the end of the raid, a bigger upgrade drops again, and then you win. So you want 2 bigger upgrades, and I only want a smaller one. Maybe I will feel like that's unfair on our list.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I could feel like, oh, that was kind of unfair. If it would have been loot council, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe both of us would have gotten a big upgrade each. Maybe. Yeah. But at the same time, if it would have been loot council, then maybe I could have made I don't know. I could have made so many other mistakes. It's just it's a can of worms just waiting to happen. Like because the second that somebody makes the first mistake, then that's the second when you have problems for life, because then nobody, I don't know, people
trust you.
It's a guild, it's a fucking guild breaker to handle loot poorly. That's a guild breaker.
Yeah. It is. So, and in terms of guild leadership and things like that, would you say loot is probably one of the key things that need to be handled correctly in order to make sure that it's a cohesive group and things like that?
As a raiding guild, yes. You need to handle loot correctly, because even if it is, people go, it's not actually that important or whatever, it's just loot, or but the second that loot is handled poorly, it's just not loot anymore.
It becomes a precedent that these people aren't treating me right.
Why is this happening? Like, there's a bias here. What happened? Like someone is cheating, someone is like, and all of a sudden you don't like the people anymore in the guild. You don't like those people.
Yeah.
So instead of not liking the people, it's better to have a objective loot system where if something happens that went wrong, we can talk about, okay, well, it's just how the system works. And if something is super wrong, then you can discuss, okay, what should we do to address this? Let's maybe make a new list if you're using Suicide Kings, or maybe, I don't know, if you're using another objective loot system, what you do.
Yeah. So if they,
I have no experience with EPGP or EKP or any
I
of
have
those
I have a
point
little bit
systems.
with EPGP. EPGP's a little bit, you get rewarded for going. So the more like myself and yourself, we would get all the loot first because we would have the most points because we raid. Me being the tank, I'm there. I have 100% attendance. You being the raid leader, you have 100% attendance. You would therefore get the loot first because you're rewarded. Yeah, you're rewarded for going first. For being there.
Fair.
It's fair, but it also feels really bad.
Always, if we go back to when it wasn't personal loot and we were using our loot system, I thought one of the benefits of our loot system was that, like, because it is a list, if you were new, you would go in at the bottom of the list. So if it was a third letter person that appeared, let's say it was you, me, and that person, then they would enter at the bottom of the list, which would mean that both you and I were ahead of them. So you would get a loot, I would get a loot, but then when the third loot dropped, they would get that loot. So they would we would only get loot once before it was their turn to get a loot. And that was pretty good, I thought, for new people. Because if we would have had a bunch of points, then maybe we would have been able to spend points 3 times before they.
I was going to say, we might be able to buy all the loot before they even, especially if you don't reset between tiers and things like that. It means that I could just save up. I've been raiding every single day. I don't skip raids. I've got all my loot I need from this raid. I'm just going to hoard points for the next tier. Oh, wait, I get to gear up really quickly that way.
I mean, I know that EPGP had decay, and several of the DKP systems probably had decay as well, because there was different versions of DKP as well. But I haven't looked. I don't know hardly anything.
The ones I've used only decayed if you didn't attend raids. So
I see.
Being a tank, mine wouldn't decay. So I would end up. I can imagine there's ones that if you don't spend points, and I know a lot of them reset. Like, people reset them between tiers so that people can't hoard points between tiers. But again, you get problems.
You have to pay more if you have more or something like that.
Yeah,
like
it's a percentage rather than a...
Something like that. Like something about that it costs you more points if you have more points.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that worked. But yeah.
So if there was an option to switch back to Master Loot, I think it's very unlikely they'll ever do it, but if there was the option to switch back to Master Loot, do you think
at this point
you would?
It's hard to know, because we have a lot of new people in the guild since Master Loot was a thing, and I don't know what people would want.
So you would still use it as a... You would still use democracy.
Early in BFA, if it would have been something that came in early in BFA, then I think we would have changed back to Master Looter. If it was something that came now, I don't know what we would do. I would have discussed it with people. I don't know that I don't have a strong opinion right now. I usually have a strong opinion, but I don't have a strong opinion on that right now. I could go either way, I think.
So it'd be a democracy thing. You would ask the guild and gauge the responses and things like that.
Yeah, because even if we go back to our guild again, I said that democracies in guilds don't work. I said early on.
Yeah.
You remember. I mean, since Cataclysm, I've been the only person. There's been short periods of time when I've used
assistants.
Other people. We used other people. Like, for example, we used. There was a mage who was my helper or my help officer for a period of time in Worlds of Draenor. But other than that, I've been.
And people help you with recruitment and.
Here.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I don't list that we aren't. I think I ask people quite a lot what they think.
It's a democratic dictatorship. You have the final say, but you still listen to what other people's opinions are. You're not gonna just.
I think if I'm gonna be really fair, I can't remember that anything has ever happened that wasn't how I wanted it to be.
You get your way, and that's what you want.
I can't remember that we've done anything that wasn't my way. I mean, smaller things maybe. That we try a new let's try this thing then. Maybe I didn't think. Maybe it wasn't the thing I thought to begin with that we were gonna do. But yeah, sure. But I don't know, bigger decisions. I can't think that we've ever done anything that I didn't agree with.
Yeah. So
I ask questions and then I make the decision.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
So when it comes to that decision making, you have the final say, sort of thing.
In
Like
our guild,
you will push. Do you think that's a wise decision?
I don't think that we have a wise order in our guild. To be fair, I don't think that you.
Do you think
I don't think
things?
that many guilds have a person who has been the guild leader and raid leader and for 14 years. I think that's
Yeah,
probably unusual, and I think that being solo at that for how many years? What, 10 years at least? I don't. Cataclysm came out when?
a
Like
long time ago.
a long time ago. So it is for someone to be alone for 10 years is probably really unusual.
Do you think? Do you think things could have
And I
been?
don't think I would recommend it either because
Yeah,
it's probably better to have helper, have
assistant. Like
assistant, and like people
challenge you maybe, just to
yeah,
make sure that you're making the right decision.
or to decide with. It's probably
Yeah.
better to have people to decide with. It's just that we didn't have that.
So would you say it's better to have like the traditional? Usually you have a GM and then you have the officer system underneath. Do you think them sort of systems are better than what
I
you
think so.
currently have?
I also, however, think that it's important that you don't promote people within your guild just because they've been in the guild for a long time or something like that. Like that should not be the reason why they're officers. You should not have officers that don't do anything special.
So you don't want to.
That are just there. Like, oh, you've been in the guild for a year, now you're an officer or whatever. Like it shouldn't be any. I don't think that you should reward ranks to people for being in the guild for a long time. I don't see the reason for that. In our guild, that's not our setup. We have me at the top. I have a rank below me that is like an assistance rank at the moment where I can move people into when they are helping me with something. If someone is helping me sell something in the guild bank or buy something or whatever it is, if someone is dealing with guild bank money, I move them up
Yeah.
to be an assistant and then I can move them down from the assist role. I think that's very unusual, but either way, below that we have a raider rank in our guild
Yeah.
where all the raiders are, and then that's everyone who is a raider. And then below that we have, well, below that is their alts, but whatever. And then below the alts of the raiders we have like a casual rank, and then it's a rank for their alts, and then we have like recruit rank.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
That's how our guild. That's the layup of our guild. I don't see the reason why you should have like a veteran rank or like a extra special raider or
yeah.
cooler than casual or. I don't. Because eventually you have to move everybody into that role, right?
Yeah,
Like
and then it might as well just be the same normal member role, right?
Then you don't have any normal guys anymore. You just have a bunch of veterans. Like, what's the point in that?
So
it's the same. Yeah.
So if you were to give advice towards someone who wanted to maybe take on, like, to show someone in your position that they're more likely to, they want to take on more responsibility, what would you give as advice to someone who wants to try and...
What do you mean? Like someone wants to be an officer in a guild?
Maybe an officer, try and work towards raid leading or GM, which I think is very rare for someone to try and push to GM.
If you want to be a GM, then you have to probably start your own guild. If you want to get more I mean, the thing is that the guild is not like a company. Like, you don't get anything. You don't get higher pay if you do more jobs or something like that. So I don't understand why anybody would want to.
Some people...
Why would they want that? But okay, if they want that, if somebody suddenly wants to make a decision or whatever, or wants to be an officer, yeah. I mean, in another guild, I guess it's different in different guilds. Maybe in some guilds you just go and say, "Hi, can I be an officer?" And the person says, "Yeah," and that's it. Maybe that's the process. I don't know. In our guild, that wouldn't be the process. In our guild, we don't have officers, so
no,
I would say, "Oh, that's nice."
Would you say we have people who? Would you say we have people who sometimes take more responsibility than others? Like, for example, you have people who help with recruitment, yes. You have people who help with the guild bank, and then you have what I would say is like the normal raiders who generally don't do a lot. They turn up to the raids on time, they come in, they do their job, sort of thing. But that's it.
Yeah,
whereas you have people who have more.
People in our guild who I can delegate to. Like, we have people in the raid team that I can trust to call things. Like, I'm now thinking that most of the people in the raid team I can ask call things, but
Yeah.
I generally ask the people who talk more to do calls.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can even ask out loud, is there anybody who feels that they're really good at seeing this, like if there's an ability that we keep fucking up on, and maybe it's announced on DBM or on big wigs or whatever it is, but we just keep having people who keeps fucking up on that, then that seems like something we should call for. Then okay, this thing is coming up, beware, or whatever it is. So who should call that? Maybe I feel like I can call that, or maybe I feel like actually I'm one of the people who keep fucking up on this thing, like, or I feel like in the moment when that happens, I'm always keeping my eye elsewhere, or I'm paying attention to something else. So I may not be fucking up, but I also don't want to be the person calling for it, like something like that. So then I will ask, is there someone who feels like they're always on top of this? Because there's going to be some people in your raid team who's just like, oh my god, how can these other guys fail? I see it like I see this so clearly. I'm always in the right place, and then I see, oh yeah, those 3 people are going to die, and then ability happens and 3 people dies, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you know, that guy, maybe he can be the guy who calls, right? Maybe
Yeah, because he obviously sees it differently to everyone else and sees it very clearly.
Yeah, if he has a really good perspective on that ability, and like he could be the guy who gives us the warning.
Yeah. So would
That
you?
guy, the guy who really saw everything really well, instead of giving it, instead of me just deciding on a person in the raid team. Oh yeah, you can do it.
Yeah. So would you
Then I can ask,
recommend?
is there someone who feels like they always see? I mean, most of the time nobody says anything special there. So then I just give it to like Anna Galf or somebody. I just say the random name in our get, but like I just give it to someone.
You just pick someone at random who you think
Pick someone
might.
random who might be watching this stream. Podcast, whatever.
So would you recommend that to people who want to try and take on more responsibility, that maybe try to show that you're capable of seeing those sorts of things, that you are, try and be good at mechanics?
Yeah, if you want to be a person who is like an officer trusted by the raid leader or the GM or whatever, yeah, sure, be a guy who points things out, I guess, in a nice way, or calls
Mechanics.
I mean, you can volunteer to call something out. You can or you can be a person who checks the
logs.
Like checks the logs for problems. Like if we're wiping from something, you can be the guy who whispers the raid leader. It was the same thing that like if you check the log really quickly before the raid leader. If the raid leader isn't a person who checks logs quickly, maybe he is, then that doesn't help. But if the raid leader is not a person who checks the logs quickly, if you can be the quick log checker who can announce it was the cones again, or it was the thing again, or like if you are the guy who announces why the people died or what happened.
Yeah, just approach it in a.
Maybe the people will announce that on their own, but if that's needed, then you can be the guy who does that. If calling is needed, if you are the guy who volunteers to call, if something else is needed, if you volunteer to do that thing, then that's going to be the way to become enough, or just asking about it, maybe saying, hey,
I want to help, how do I help?
Maybe do some of those things first, or also show to raid on time, bring the consumables, be trustworthy in that way.
Yeah, but it's a take initiative, but don't overstep your bounds, sort of thing.
No, I mean, don't start calling things if it doesn't, like,
if it's not going to be helpful.
Asked for. If that's not asked for, then that's just going to be annoying. If you suddenly like, oh, I should go to left, like if you start being or helping the raid leader, like it's never good to have a helper who's vocal.
Yeah, who doesn't help.
If that's not welcomed, the raid leader, if you don't know that they wanted you to do that, then don't do that.
Yeah. So
because backseat raid leaders, like it's just like, oh, that's nice that you said that. Now shut up. I mean, it's generally going to be
even if it's helpful, most people are going to ignore it anyway because it just feels awkward.
Could be that the raid team ignores the person, and that the raid team finds it awkward that person suddenly calls, and it could be that the raid leader finds it annoying that person is suddenly talking. Yeah.
So, in terms of something that may be a little bit of an awkward conversation, is how do you deal with maybe people who do struggle with mechanics sometimes when it's consistent? How do you deal with those
I'm
sorts
thinking
of
that some
things?
guilds probably are really, really,
Confrontational?
maybe confrontational and tell the person straight away, or maybe yell about it, or maybe the whole team is pointing and going, haha, you did it wrong. I don't know. Maybe that happens in some guilds. In our guild, that doesn't happen.
Do you have advice for how to deal with that sort of thing?
I think it's one of the things I do the worst, to be fair. I think
Okay.
it's one of my weaknesses as a raid leader, is that I'm not confrontational enough. I often say things like, okay, we did this ability bad. Let's all shape up now. That's maybe step one. That I say, let's get better at this.
Yeah.
And maybe I only mean 2 people, but I will say, let's everyone get better at this. And then because everybody has a different learning curve, and it doesn't always help to tell a person like, hey, I'm noticing that you're doing this bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that always helps that you point that out. Maybe some people need, but at the same time, if they don't understand that they're doing it wrong, it's not good either.
Yeah.
Maybe they think, oh, I'm equally bad as everyone else. Why? But no, you're not equally bad as everyone else, because you keep dying on the easy thing.
Yeah. Could
And the rest of us have already passed the easy thing, and we're dying on the next step. That was
yeah.
hard. Like we've moved forward. And
So
you're
could
still
that
dying
be
on
a good approach?
problem 1.
Is to basically inform the person and try and find a way that helps them through the mechanic, rather than trying to be confrontational and maybe somewhat aggressive towards them, saying that they're just bad. Maybe try and find a way that
I think
make the mechanic easier for them.
yeah, I don't think that being aggressive is at least, yes, trying to find a way to make the mechanic easier. But sometimes people have a hard time admitting that they don't. I mean, if everybody could be a person who's instantly said, I'm having a problem with this thing, like, what are the rest of you guys doing? Because I don't understand how to do this ability. People don't say things like that normally,
No.
right? People don't announce, yeah, I'm bad at the cone. How do you guys deal with the cone? And then someone says, well, I always run to the right. I've noticed you're running to the left. That's probably the reason why it's going poorly for you. You know, like if that happened, then that's stuff. That would be really good if people said that.
So your
and they got those
advice,
kind of answers. It's my advice that you try to make that situation. Yes,
but your
it would
advice
be
to
good if people
raiders,
communicated really well.
yeah,
It's my advice that you try to be. Yeah, my advice is that you try to have a raid group where you can talk about things like that, and it's not
yeah,
shameful or bad
try to be
or
honest with each other.
prestigious or proud, or like that everybody can talk about stuff like that. Is that the case in our guild? No. But it's my advice. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my advice. Try to have that happen. Good for you.
Okay.
In our raid team, I think it's rather that the person doesn't get told for a while, and then eventually I will talk to them on the side and say, hey, I've noticed that you're dying a lot from disability. Is there anything special happening there? But then it's been quite a while, so a lot of the time that I don't have to have that conversation, because they have
Okay.
eventually learned. Instead of asking them after, like, I certainly don't confront them like after one. Some people are like, well, if you die once, then you've learned, with that. So and then if they die a second time, it's like outrage, like, what the fuck, you already died from. Like, we don't have that culture.
Yeah.
It's rather that you die 4 times. I will say, everybody get better at this. Then you die 4 more times. I remind everybody, okay, we're still not doing good at this. And then you die like 10 more times, and then maybe I will whisper you.
Yeah. Okay. So it's something you're bad at is.
I would say that I wait too long. I
Yeah.
should do this better. I should confront people earlier,
Okay.
and that would probably be good.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's possible that they would be worse if they get told that they're bad. So there's that aspect of it.
But is it bad, or is it just lack of understanding? I feel like a lot of the mechanics in the raids aren't necessarily hard, it's coordination. So it's more that they're out of sync with everybody else, and once they get in sync, things seem to go a lot smoother. It's like a big dance, and if everybody, you have that one guy who's out of sync and out of step.
It's one of those kinds of abilities, and yes, then it might be better to talk about it earlier. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we always wait 20 20 wives or 20 deaths on something, and then I talk to the person. So I mean, sometimes we try to talk about things sooner than that. If it is something where it would be easy to see that the person is just out of sync, then I think it's reasonable to try to talk about it as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not the issue. It is rather that, I don't know, like swirls on the floor, and you just move out too slow. It's not really about
Yeah, but you can help
being
people with that because there's usually timers. So maybe you should call the timers
calling
for
the
them.
swirl. Yeah, maybe calling the swirl is the thing, but it depends on
Yeah.
how often they happen. Like in the
Yeah.
progress in the fight that we're on right now in Dormansign, I think the swirls are really frequent, which means it would be really hard for us to call for swirls on that boss.
Yeah.
But there's other fights where, yeah, maybe you should start calling the thing. Maybe there's only 2 people failing. Maybe everyone else is doing the ability really good, but maybe you should have someone call it anyways.
Yeah.
Until those 2 people get better.
Okay.
Because in a raid team, unless you're in a really, I mean, in where we are in medium core, just to be clear, there's always going to be some people who are better than other people, and you're not at most guilds are not in a position where you can just exchange the worst players for better players, because there's not that many players in the pool.
Yeah.
And if that's the atmosphere that you have in your guild, that the worst player will be replaced, then that's not a nice guild to be in.
Yeah.
So you're gonna want to leave that guild eventually, because you're gonna feel like, oh yeah, it might be me soon. Maybe soon I'm the worst player. Might feel alright for the person who's the top player, right? For a while
Yeah.
at least. But if they then have a moment where, oh shit, my class is worse now, like there's been a patch and something has changed and my class isn't as good as it was, then you get nervous too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or you get a
You want to
bad
feel safe within your environment, not like
yeah,
the constant. If I'm at the bottom, they're gonna get rid of me.
exactly. You want to feel safe, because otherwise you can't admit either that you have a like then it's harder to admit that you have a problem. Like I said, it would be better if everybody would have no prestige at all and people would just be like, wow, I just wiped like I've done the same thing 3 times. Do you guys have any tips? Like if people were more like that, I think that would be.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't do that if you were afraid of being um, if you were afraid of being replaced. You wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to admit something like that. So I personally think it's better to have the opposite mood, where mistakes are allowed, but we try our best. Mistakes are
Yeah.
allowed, like some form of mood like that, rather than no mistake is allowed, and
You'll lose your spot if
we're
you're bad
constantly
enough.
looking for better people than you.
Yeah.
You know, like
Okay, but speaking about where the guild is in terms of difficulty, like you said, you call yourself semi-hardcore, medium core. Do you feel that the higher end guilds cause issues for us in recruitment? I'm circling back to recruitment. Do you feel like they cause issues for us with recruitment because of the way that they set the meta and things like that? Like, for example, the boss progressing on Dormazine, that we struggled to get the classes such as mages, death knights, because a second death knight would make Dormazine a lot easier, and things like that. That the meta classes have become a lot harder to recruit because they can get into higher end guilds with less progress. So
I think that situation that I talked about that happened in Warlords of Draenor, where the top guilds were also seeking, like they were going down. They needed people, and they couldn't find people that were on the same progress as them. Therefore, they had to everybody had to lower their standards. I don't think that the standards have ever gone all the way back up after it, but it's not the same as it was in Warlords of Draenor. But for periods of times, it is like every time we're low, we have every time the pool of players that are looking for guild is small, then you have to probably lower your standards.
yeah.
I mean, we're at the moment, I don't think that this expansion is in its high point at the moment. It's few people playing, and it's few people that want to be recruited.
Yeah.
And when there's few people who want to be recruited, it's hard.
Yeah, that's when you start dropping your
For everyone,
standards.
that's when you drop your standards. But it might
You still might not find people.
you may not find people easily. Like we have been recruiting for, or we have been trying to be more people for a while now, and it has been hard to find. Like, this is a period where it has been hard to find people.
Yeah. But do you think...
More so than in the past, because in the past, like, I'm not even finding the lower people.
Yeah. Do you think it's harder to find those meta classes, though? Do you think that the stuff like...
Alright, you were asking about meta classes. Yes,
Yeah.
sure. It's always harder to find whatever it is that is good at the moment. Like,
It's...
because they have an easier time to be recruited. I think actually it's really hard to say, because I think that if you're a person who's looking for a guild and you're a tank, as far as I understand, tanks have a really hard time finding a new guild,
Yeah.
because most raiding guilds already have tanks.
Yeah. It's very
At
hard.
the same time, we've been looking for a tank many times, and it's been really hard to find a tank. So even if they find it hard to find a guild, it's also hard to find them. So I don't really know. There seems to be...
I think tanking is in a really weird spot because, like...
Because if mages are really good at the moment, it might also be that more people are playing mages, which means that all the guilds already have a mage.
Yeah.
Which means it could be harder for you as a mage to find a guild, because all the guilds already have their mages, because everyone is playing the good spec.
Tanks are in a
So
very weird spot, though. Tanks are a very specialized spot.
Tanks are very specialized,
yeah. Whereas, like I said, do you feel that, especially with bosses like Dormazine, like I said, that becomes a lot easier when you have multiple DKs, or if you have a boss that's specialized where you, and if it is only one boss in the tier, that you, a priest is good because you need a mind control or a master spell. Do you think do you think them classes become a lot harder to recruit because they can get into higher end guilds?
Maybe. Yeah, it's possible that they're hard to recruit. I don't feel like it is something that I've necessarily noticed that when... No, I don't think it's something I've necessarily noticed, unless there's a class who's good all through the tier. Or who is because if it's just a class that is good on one boss or important on one boss, if they're not progressing on that boss, I mean, we're progressing on that boss, so we want to find that class maybe.
Yeah.
But the other guilds are not going to be progressing on that boss, so they don't necessarily need that class
Need the
anymore.
second DK or...
Yeah, so they might not need the... I mean, they're getting ready for the next tier, I guess.
Yeah.
So they're thinking about what they need.
So if there was a tier where grip was important on, say, 60 to 70% of the bosses, you may find it harder to find a DK.
But then at the same time, maybe more people
But want to play DK because they feel like they can get into a guild a lot easier.
Which would maybe mean that all the DK spots ended up being filled. So I don't really know. I think it could be that sometimes there's a lack of a certain class, but I think it is more... I genuinely think that it's more when a class is not needed that it's harder to find it.
Okay.
Than when they are needed. Like, let's say that you feel like, okay, we don't really need a warlock for any of the particular bosses, but it would be really nice to have a warlock in the team, just for the whatever, like for health stones or for something. And nothing is especially talked about warlocks, like on the current raid. Then that might mean that people roll away from warlock, and that makes it harder to find a warlock.
So it's the niche classes that become harder to find rather than the meta classes, because the meta classes are meta, therefore people are playing them.
That's my opinion, yes.
Yeah.
That's it might not be true, I might be wrong, but but my opinion is that probably it's rather those classes, yeah.
Do you feel that
are harder to find?
Raid buffs such as Arcane Intellect, Battle Shout, and things like that make recruitment harder as well, due to the need for these buffs and the Demon Hunter debuffs?
I mean, generally melee people are easier to find than ranged people.
Yeah.
And mages and priests are fairly frequent. So we don't have a mage, but we have a mage curse in our guild.
They disappear.
So we always lose our mages. That's the rule in our guild. I'm sure there's a rule in some other guild about rogues or
Demon Hunters.
I'm sure there's loads of guilds that are just packed with mages. Obviously, there has to be, because we don't have one.
But do you think? There's a strong thing within the WoW community that these buffs, such as Battle Shout, Arcane Intellect, are class identity. As you played Druid, you used to have class. Do you see them as class identity, as you used to have one of these buffs in Mark of the Wild, and you have lost it? Do you actually think they are part of the class identity, or do you think?
I genuinely don't think that class identity was important, and I think that they should exist on scrolls. If you don't have that class in your raid, you should just be able to scroll, and it should be the same as the class has.
But then, do you not see an issue where it's if mage isn't good, don't bring mage at all? Do you feel like that it gives you a reason to bring a mage for class diversity?
Okay, if you're in a high-end guild, then you're working on a specific boss, and let's say whatever class is strong, hunters are really strong here, then maybe they're bringing 10 hunters to the fight. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're probably bringing as many hunters as they can then to that fight, or like unreasonable amounts of hunters, and then they take whatever else that is needed to buff the hunters or something, right? But if you're playing where we are, like, we're not in a position where people have a bunch of alts that are equally good as their mains.
Yeah.
We're not in a position where we have a queue of people who want to join our guild. So we can't just go, all right, like, let's look through the queue and see where we have all the hunters, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think we're in a, you know, we can't just make everybody re-roll to something.
Yeah.
Can't ask people to re-roll to something that they don't want to play. So instead, you have to play with what you have. And I think it's a lot better if you try to have a diverse group than if you try to have the cookie cutter group for one boss. Because once you pass that boss, then what?
Yeah.
So it's a lot better that you have a variety of melee and you have a variety of ranged. So even if at the moment maybe mages aren't strong, still really good to have a mage in the group, because maybe on the next boss mages are strong, or in the next patch, because the next patch is coming sooner than you think. You can't just weed mages out or weed out the lowest performer in every patch. Instead, you just play with the lowest performer. Maybe you have an elemental shaman in the group. With the elemental shaman was really strong on the first raid.
Yeah.
And then something happens and they get weaker on the second raid. Do you make reroll? We don't make reroll. We just let them stay.
Yeah, you let them play whatever they want to play.
And they could get to continue playing elemental shaman, and then they were weaker, and then maybe in the next raid they're stronger again. You know, like, so that's how. But they bring in whatever totems that they have, and they bring in the opportunity maybe to be a healer if you need to be a healer. Like, they still have utility. Like, and even if they're not the strongest DPS, someone is going to be the lowest DPS. It will rotate who is strong and who is.
Yeah.
And if you have everything, or almost everything, then you may always have. Maybe you always have one or two of the strong ones, right? And maybe you have one or two of the weak ones, but it evens out.
Yeah. So
the thing is, obviously, we cannot compete. Does it affect us that the strong guilds or the high-end guilds can stack the good thing? Yes, of course it affects us, but the bosses generally get nerfed.
Yeah.
First they go with whatever this is the max thing, and they kill the bosses with the and I mean, they have to like struggle a bit to kill the boss. It can't just be that if you take the best comp, then
that's it. You get the kill. Yeah.
I mean, Blizzard will make sure that the best comp will struggle. So they let the best comp struggle for a while, and then once enough of them have killed the bosses, then they start nerfing the raids. And they have to, obviously, because the rest of us are not coming with the best comp.
Yeah.
We might, however, be coming with slightly better gear than what the top world first guilds were coming with, because they had, a bit lower gear than us. They didn't have that many weeks to gear up. We have had many weeks to start gearing up.
Yeah.
But they have the best comp, and then they have a lot of, a lot more time.
And they have a lot of exceptional players.
They have exceptional players, and then they have a lot more time, right?
And 21st raiders and things like that, where they have people outside raid leading and doing cooldowns and,
for example,
making weak auras and whatnot. They have a lot more advantages.
And they have been on the PTR and played through the PTR and practiced the bosses as much as they could on the PTR. And then when they're coming into the, to live, they have I don't know how many hours a night that they are raiding, but they are already they've spent a lot of time on the PTR already, and then they're spending a lot of time live. Maybe they have 300 pulls before they kill the boss, but they do the 300 pulls in a much more condensed time. They do that within a week.
Or they do them all on PTR as well.
Yeah, maybe they have 300 wipes on live, but they also have 250 wipes on PTR.
Yeah.
Right?
They have...
Or more.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it is completely possible that they've, the top guilds, yeah, they have exceptional players, sure, but maybe those players aren't really that necessarily that far away from players who are playing in more casual guilds or semi-hardcore guilds, medium core, whatever you want to say. The players in the hardcore guild doesn't necessarily need to be that much more skilled.
They have more of a commitment.
Because they're spending a lot more time in a condensed period.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I guess speaking of rerolls and multiple specs, multiple classes, and things like that, how do you deal with people that want to switch from one class to another, or from another role to another role, and things like that?
I mean, in our guild, if you want to swap between one role and another role, if there's a spot for you in the raid, if you're a raider, okay, first of all, I didn't say this, but I want to make a point. I think something that is important in a more casual raid guild or in a medium core raid guild, I think any guild that wants to start raiding, I think it's important to have a rank for raiders.
Okay.
I think that's important, that you have a rank within or that you have a group of, that doesn't have to be a rank, doesn't have to be a rank, but it has to be a group of people that these are the raiders. Because if you just have we are having raids, everybody sign up, then there's going to be people who nobody will feel like they have a particular responsibility to sign up. They will just sign up when they feel like it.
Yeah.
And then that means that some weeks you will have too many people to raid, some weeks you will have too few people to raid.
Strange compositions where you got 6 tanks.
It's super odd.
No
so
healers.
Instead of that, just make sure that you make a little raid team within the guild.
Yeah.
Like, these are the raiders. And then you can recruit to that team, or, then you know what you need in that team. Oh, we only have one healer. There's only one person in the guild who wants to be, take the responsibility of being a raider. And then you decide whatever that responsibility is. That is probably to sign for most of the raids or like be available for most of the raids that the guild has, or at least half of them or something. That's the rule. And then if you notice, there's actually only one healer here, then maybe for a period of time you will have to ask the casuals if they can come and help you heal. Maybe you have 10 other healers who can come and fill that role once in a while, but you try to recruit to find someone
that wants to make the commitment,
who can also make that same commitment that they are there. Because the other casuals, they can take a break and they can disappear and they don't need to have responsibility, and sometimes you invite them to the raids anyways. If it's flex, if it's heroic, you can just have all of them come whenever they want to, as long as you're up to 30 people, right?
Yeah.
But then you at least know that these are the people who will be there. These are the people who have who will be picked, always be picked for the raid. That's the benefit they get. They always get picked for the raid. Even if 35 people sign up for the raids, these raiders, they're always picked. So that's the benefit. And the responsibility that they have, that is that they continue being available. And if anything changes, then they let the raid leader know.
Yeah.
Whereas the casual people, they don't have to let anyone know. They can sign off or whatever. So I think it's important to have a raider rank in the guild.
Or someone who is defined as a raider. Make sure they're defined.
Or a group of people who are defined as, these are the raiders and this is the responsibilities that they have. And this is what they gain, and this is what they need to do. And it doesn't have to be a lot they need to do. It's just that if you don't feel any responsibility towards signing up at all, then sometimes you might have really long periods of not doing that. But if you have a responsibility to sign up, then either you get to be a raider or you don't have to be. If you decide to be a raider, then you do that. and then you tell the person, I don't want to be a raider anymore, and then you won't do it. But then at least the raid leader knows what is there.
Yeah.
That I think is important. What was the question again?
How do you deal with rerolls within
Okay.
the guild
Rerolls
and changes
within that raid
class
group. So within that
and
raid group, you know what you have, right? Because
mm-hmm.
you have a raid team. You can write down what you have. I have 2 tanks. Okay, 2 tanks are raiders. Cool. What is the attendance that we require? Maybe we require 50%. Okay, maybe we need to have a third tank. Who knows? Or maybe we need to have 5 healers. Maybe we need to have 10 healers. Like you decide, depending on the attendance that you require, you will decide. In our guild, we have decided that we want the tanks to have as higher attendance than other people. Almost full attendance is what we want from tanks, because it's only 2 roles. So for tanks, 2 guys that are always there, and that really helps. So we require more from tanks than from other people. It also means that they always get to go. That's the benefit of being a tank. But we try to find people who really want to raid as tanks, because it is hard. Otherwise, they have to sit out 1 raid every week, right?
Yeah.
If you have 3 tanks, that means that like A and B goes to we have 3 raids a week. So for us, it would mean that the tanks get to sit out one of those raids every week. A and B go the first raid, B and C go on the second raid, A and C go on the third raid, then A, B, B,
Yeah, and
C,
it just
A,
keeps
C. You have to
rotating.
rotate like that, but then it also means that okay, one of those tanks never gets to go on the first day when maybe you kill all the C never gets to go on the first raid. So then you need to start rotating that C also gets to go on the first raid, because otherwise he doesn't get to do the farm
Yeah.
bosses. And so it's just a mess of trying to fit like when is which tank gonna go. So it's a
Yeah.
lot easier if you can have 2 tanks and then maybe a person with a tank off spec that you can use when the tanks are not available, or 2 people with tank off specs that can be your extras.
Yep.
That's what I think about. Okay, so some person in the raid team wants to reroll to another role. I mean, to another role can be really hard. If someone wants to reroll to tank and we have 2 tanks,
Yeah.
then there's no.
It's basically waiting to see if that other person wants to stay tank. It's just basically waiting and letting them know.
My answer to that is to say, I'm sorry, that's not really possible.
At the moment,
that's our answer in our guild. You can't reroll to tank. We have tanks. In the future, whenever we end up losing a tank, then you will be first in line. But that may not happen. That's going to be the answer from my point of view. If you really want to play tank, you probably need to find another group to play with. But maybe you can be tank on like
the off spec maybe.
maybe you can discuss with one of the tanks, like on farm night. Do you mind playing DPS spec? Like, do you find it fun to play DPS spec? Do you find it fun to? Maybe you can come on an alt. Maybe you can ask the other tank if he feels like coming on an alt, and you let this guy who really wants to tank get to tank on.
Yeah.
On maybe that can be a solution, but you can't let someone randomly just. You can't have 5 tanks in the guild.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, it's like a 20% attendance, like, or
Yeah. I was gonna save questions till the end, but someone just asked. No. I was gonna save them till the end, but someone just asked a really good question. What happens if someone? No. It's fine. What happens if someone re-rolls and they're really bad at the roll?
Okay. Yeah. In our
How
guild,
do you
what
approach
we do
that?
when someone re-rolls is that they ask, like, they come and say, "Oh, I feel like re-rolling." Our general mood is that okay. It's better that okay. It's annoying when someone wants to re-roll. They need to get a bunch of new gear on that character, etc., etc. Right? So it's a hassle that someone wants to re-roll. It would be better if everybody just stayed on the characters they were on, unless, of course, the thing they're re-rolling to is something that we really need. But a lot of the time, it's just that they feel like re-rolling to something else. It may not at all be what we need in the raid team. So it is just because they want to, not because they're trying to be extra helpful or something, but they want to. Okay, I think that it's best if people are happy playing the game. It's a bigger chance that they continue playing, like that they continue playing. if you force if you say, yeah, no, you're not allowed to reroll, you have to stay on the character that you don't like to play anymore, then that will be like, okay, that person may stop raiding because they don't like playing that character. So allowing them to reroll is reasonable, or as within reason, you should try to let the person reroll, because if they're happy, it's a bigger chance that they, play, that they sign up for raids and that they play. But otherwise, they're gonna fall off. They're gonna want to stop playing the game, right? You want people to be happy, I think. So let them reroll. Okay, what if they are bad at rerolling? Then I think there should be a period of time when they reroll that they are sort of on a trial on the new character. While they're on trial on the new character, I think you should try to give them feedback more so than you would of any other recruit. Like, give them more chances, more, really try to, if they're playing it poorly, really try to help them with a new character so they won't play it poorly. Find if there's anyone else in the guild who can have input, and give them input on the new character. Really try to help that person play better. I mean, be open, obviously. Okay, you're not doing this really well yet. Let's try to figure out what's wrong. Like, if you have someone in the guild, if you are good with logs, go to the logs, look at the logs. What are they doing wrong? If someone else can help you with that, then have that person involved. Like, make a small group of people, or you and another person, or a third person, or whatever, and try to push this person who's rerolling into playing better.
So
if they are hopeless, like, give them more chances than you would give anybody else.
Definitely work with them.
That's my tip. That's what we do in our guild. Like, if someone wants to reroll and they're not doing it well, then
work with them.
Time we have tried to
be constructive and work
to push them into doing it
better.
A lot of the time when they want to reroll and then don't do it well, they change their minds, though. Like, that's
I think it's demoralizing when you realize you're not doing it well.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's generally demoralizing. But what we do is we try to help the person.
Yeah.
And we've had several projects like that.
We have a lot of projects at the moment, not necessarily bad reroll projects, but we have a lot of.
What I mean is that we in our guild have had several projects where, for example, you, Mr. Rogery, have been involved in trying to help someone look at their logs and telling them, like, okay, this is what you're currently doing different than other people playing your class. This is what you can try to improve. Look, these other people have like a 90% uptime on this thing, but you have a 30% uptime on your thing.
Maybe you should press that button a bit more.
Perhaps if you try to do something so you get closer to the 90%, then that probably will have an effect on the damage that you do, or on the healing that you do, or whatever. So we try to look at the logs and find what the person's doing wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we always try to do that, actually, when someone is playing. Actually, we will always look at the logs. Whenever someone is rerolling, we try to look at the logs and see, are they doing this good?
Yeah.
And then we give them that feedback. Yeah, this is going really well, or no, this is not going well.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is what you should work.
I've got like 2 or 3 more questions. This actually ended up being a lot longer than what I was expecting.
But I said in the beginning that I'm long-winded, so that's
but it's. I've got a couple more questions. I was going to ask about, especially as we're talking about roles and things like that. Do you think your position in the raid, the role you play, do you think it's a good choice or a bad choice? Maybe it should be clarified that you play a Moonkin.
Play Moonkin. There has been moments where it has felt like a really bad choice to be Moonkin. It depends how convoluted Moonkin is at the moment. And sometimes I haven't been playing the best spec. I can't play the best spec because, for example, for anybody who knows how to Moonkin, like, I never played Star-Lord. I never play Star-Lord because Star-Lord is, actually, to be fair, I'm not entirely sure if it's exactly the same right now, but I think it is. Star-Lord is that if you do like we have an instant spender, and then we have builders as well. Like Moonkins have Wrath and Starfire; those are the builders, and then we use Star Surge as a spender, and it's a big hit thing. Okay, whenever you do a Star Surge, you start a 15-second period where you have more haste.
Yeah.
And the Star Surge gives you a percentage haste, but if you do two more, within that period, within that 15-second period of time, it will stack to 3 stacks of that. So 3 stacks is the max stacks of the haste that you can have. So it's really good if you keep track of your 15-second period, right? And then you need to, in the beginning of it, you need to have a lot of energy so that you can do your 3 star surges really quickly. So you have 3 stacks for the majority of the 15 seconds. Yeah. Then when the 15 seconds are over, I need to be able to do spend 3 really quickly again, etc. That kind of goes with our eclipse cycle, by the way, because we also have a 15-second eclipse cycle. However, we need to cast 2 casts in between, but that doesn't necessarily need to be Star Surge. So it works with our with how Moonkin works. It's not like a outlandish thing, but I really can't play that as well as I should because I can't keep track of. It's like an extra thing to keep track of.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's still good to have a lot of. I mean, in the beginning of each eclipse, I still want to have energy and spend, but I don't know how to explain it. I find Star Lord I won't play it well, so I just don't take that talent. I will take a talent that is subpar, but it's like generally
it's easier micromanagement
from each other. They're usually not that far away from each other. So I take a talent that I know that I can play better.
Yeah.
So me as a raid leader, I will not play the perfect Moonkin spec.
Yeah.
And I will not play it as well as I
could.
I could. Like if we're on target dummy or something, I could play it better than what I can play paying attention to other people in the raid.
Yeah.
There's people probably that play their spec better as a raid leader, and there's people who play their spec worse as a raid. I don't think I should be in melee, for example. I don't think I should have been a melee person. So am I playing the right class? I think ranged is a decent class to play as a raid leader. I think tank is probably a decent class to play as a raid leader, and I think I think melee is probably the hardest to play as a raid leader.
Yeah. So do you think that maybe if you were to pick a role that was the optimal for raid leading, what would you think it would be?
That's what I don't know. Like I think it could be both healer, tank, and
maybe a simple range DPS like a hunter or something like that has a slightly simpler rotation.
Whichever class you choose as your range DPS or as your healer or as your tank, you can probably simplify it slightly. If it becomes like I've been playing Moonkin since the pre-patch for Wrath of I've been playing it since the pre-patch of Wrath of the Lich King. So I was a tank when we started the guild in TBC. I was a tank for a year, and then going into the new expansion, I became a Moonkin. But I was still tanking, maybe in raids if it was needed, kind of thing. But we fairly soon I didn't have to tank anymore. I would say. So I have been a Moonkin for what is that? 13 years, something like that.
Almost as long as you've been a raid leader.
Yes, I've been a raid leader for 14 years, and I've been a GM for 14 years, but I've been a Moonkin for like 13 or 12. Okay. Whatever. I haven't changed at any point. I'm not a re-roller. I'm not a re-roller. There's been periods when that has been easier for me as a Moonkin and harder for me as a Moonkin, but I have tried to pick talents maybe. I mean, now in the latest years, when the talent trees look like it does right now, I've tried to pick talents that I can
simplify it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not picking a talent that is useless, but I would maybe pick a passive, or I would pick the something that has less micromanaging.
I think Star-Lord and Incarnation. Incarnation is just an improvement to your cooldown, whereas Star-Lord has micromanagement involved.
Exactly. So I just don't add that
Yeah.
micromanagement to my stuff. If I take that micromanagement away, if I find it easier to play,
Yeah.
and Incarnation is not that far away DPS wise, so I just choose to have Incarnation like a better cooldown instead of having a little micromanagement game to play.
Yeah.
Even though that game does suit Moonkin, I'm not saying it's wrong for Moon.
You're saying
It's
it's just wrong for you.
yeah, in this tier, like how Moonkin works right now, it works really well for us.
Yeah.
This, because I mean, they keep changing. I don't know if people are aware, but they have changed Moonkins throughout the years I play Moonkin. Like, we've had so many changes. We've had bars that are moving around on our screens. We've had bars that we had to push around on our screen. We've had suddenly they took the bar away. There's been a lot of like eclipse happens when you pass the center of the bar. Eclipse happens when you reach the max of the bar. There's been a lot of different systems and a lot of different ways that Moonkins have worked.
Yeah.
I like the way they work now. That's not the question though. Like, we're talking about.
Yeah. Next
But
expansion, it'd be you get to play Snake, and that's how you get to play your
yeah, maybe
Eclipse.
that's how we play it next week. Who knows? Or I have to do something else. Sure, I wouldn't be surprised because we had a bunch of other stuff, so why not?
Yeah.
But
yeah, so
I
you think
Moonkin kind of suits raid leading,
You
kind
would-
of, maybe not.
you would think ranged roles are generally maybe ranged, possibly even a tank is better at micromanaging people.
I mean, tank. I'm saying tank just because you're the part of the you're the person who moves the boss or whatever.
Yeah, you have control of the
I
fight
think otherwise
basically
it's kind of nice to stand away from. Other than that, I think it's nice
because
to
you
stand
have a
away.
visual overview.
Yes, you get a bit of an overview of other
Yeah.
people. You don't necessarily have full control of how the tanks are moving the boss, though. Like, if you
Yeah.
are the raid leader and the tank at the same time, then you get to be the person who
You're in
does.
control of the fight. That's one advantage you have. Yeah.
Yeah, but as long as you have tanks that you like or can talk to or whatever,
Yeah.
then you can decide. I mean, you can kind of let them play how they want to play, and then if there's something about that you don't agree with, like, I don't want us to move the boss like that. Let's
Yeah.
move the boss like this, and you just tell them, and then that generally happens, depending on who you have at the tank. Sometimes you might have an argument, but that's with you. I'm talking about you.
Yeah, I know. I got that hint then. Okay, so if we shift slightly on things, I wanted to discuss systems such as artifact power and Azerite power and how they, like with the Legion legendaries, artifacts, sorry, and the Azerite neck in BFA, how the numeric systems affected things in the guild, whether they affected morale and things like that.
You already know the answer to this. Yes.
Yes.
It affected morale in our guild. I think
Yeah.
it might have affected morale in many guilds, but in our guild, artifact power in Legion was a big hit to morale in our guild. Probably in other guilds too. I didn't see that one coming, so I was poorly prepared in that expansion.
Mhm.
In general, I try to make everybody feel like, I want things to be fair. I like when things are fair, and I want people to feel like things are fair in our guild.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to feel like there's cliques in the guild, or like there's like some people are more important than other people, or some people are ahead of others, or I want everybody to feel like they're the same. And so whenever there's things that happen that could make people feel like they're not the same, I find problems in that.
Yeah.
Like, we had an event in the beginning of Orlus Draenor, so this is before artifacts systems or anything like that,
Yeah.
where before the raids opened, there was the best way of getting loot was go to the challenge modes, and at that time we were looking for a new tank because our previous tank had stopped or quit before the
Yeah.
like right around the time when the expansion started. They decided they had to quit. So we came into the new expansion looking for a new tank, and nobody was really leveling a character that they wanted to Like nobody was leveling a tank off spec at the time. So everybody leveled up. We only had one tank in the guild. And there was a group who went and did challenge modes with the one tank that we had. That's fine, They did the challenge mode. And then they did the second challenge mode with the same group. And then they did the third challenge mode with the same group. And then they were like planning, when should we do the next challenge mode? Should we do it on Tuesday? Should we do it on like they were planning ahead when to go to challenge modes. And everybody else was just sitting like left out of the challenge modes because what were we gonna do? Pug it? Like it was already at the point where almost instantly when something comes out, if you want to pug it, you have to have already done it, right?
Yeah.
To be able to go there, you need to show the achievement of being there. Like, so obviously to pug a challenge mode, you needed to show that you already had done the challenge mode. None of us had done the fucking challenge modes, right?
Yeah.
So we were just waiting for our turn. And somebody in the guild was really trying to be part of the challenge. Like I remember a guy who was problematic in other ways, but he was really trying to like, oh, just sit outside of it. Like he was trying to sit outside of the challenge modes just to be part of a group. I don't know. And then the challenge mode people were trying to avoid him all the time. So whenever he went to eat, that's when they started their challenge modes. Whatever. That was that's a problem in itself.
Yeah.
That was a problem in itself. That guy was a problem. We ended up he's one of the few people that we ever kicked from the guild. So he was kicked from the guild a few weeks later for basically because nobody liked him. So there was a problem with him and other people in the guild.
Yeah.
Either way, okay. So we had this whole challenge mode thing where people started feeling left out. That guy felt left out, but other people also felt left out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I crushed group basically. I just went in and said, "You guys are not allowed to play anymore. Goodbye." Like that was pretty much it. Like I just went in and said, "Nobody else gets to play challenge modes. That means none of you get to do it either.
Yeah.
It's over." Was that the right decision? I don't know. That was the decision I made.
Yeah.
You guys, like other people didn't get to do it. Now you don't get to do it either. Done.
Yeah.
That was pretty much what it was like, right?
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment of the situation?
Yeah.
So when the new expansion was coming, I knew there was something going to be like keys was going to happen in Legion. So I was being really like thinking, oh, like these keys, that's going to be like the challenge modes. Like people are going to be excluding each other. Like it's going to be like, oh, now I have a higher key. I can only play with other people with a higher key. And whoever is, leveled up later or whoever came in second are not going to get to go because of these keys. I was totally wrong about that. Like I just thought the situation was going to be different. So I thought that it was going to be an excluding thing.
Yeah.
That a group of 5 were going to start doing keys, and then they were going to want to continue doing keys, and then didn't want to go with anybody else who didn't have their keys. So I thought that was the problem in Legion. So I was prepared to crush. Prepared to crush that group.
Yeah.
But then that wasn't the thing. It was the artifact power. Like some people.
So you got blindsided by the artifact power.
Guild, probably everybody was getting artifact power in the same pace. And if you're in a lower end guild, probably nobody cares.
Yeah.
But when you're in our area, it's like people care and people get it in different paces. So we ended up in a situation where some people. Coming out of World of the Draenor, where you hardly had to do anything with your character between raids, came into a new expansion, and now you have to suddenly grind.
Yeah.
And not everybody wanted to grind or had time to grind, or So, some people I probably thought that, oh, after I've leveled my first character, I'm gonna level an alt. Maybe they thought that.
Yeah.
Good luck. What you were supposed to do was instantly go and do all the daily quests that were available to you anywhere on the map. Like, to keep up with the people who did the most artifact power.
The people who were grinding Mythic Plus.
People were grinding dungeons and then doing all the dailies that were on the map that you could get artifact power from, right? So some people got so far ahead of other people. And you had the talent tree on the weapon and all of that some people just got, more quickly to the talents, and then they started getting annoyed. Why is this person doing less effort? This guy is just doing no effort. Like, so there was a whole thing where, like, the top 3 people started thinking that the the people below them were shit. And then you were like the guy number 4. It was like, yeah, okay, I'm all right, but the people below me are shit. And number 5 was like, yeah, me and maybe number 6, we're all right, but the people below us are shit. And then maybe number 7 was like, well, I was away for 2 days, so I mean, I totally could have been higher compared to other people in the guild. But I mean, I don't even like the people below me. They must be total shit
Yeah.
because they weren't away for 2 days. Like we kept having those kind of moods in the guild. And we had a guy in the raid team who was fairly young. Maybe he was making it be more. I don't know. But there was for the first time in our guild's history, we started having a mood of, okay, that guy is a recruit. Let's keep him, but let's get rid of our raiders. It was like we didn't want to have
the ones who were low on
we
artifact
wanted
power.
to exclude the guys in the raid team. It was like, yeah, let's delete half the raid team who are shit, and let's get in new guys instead.
Yeah.
Which was never the mood before. Before it was like, oh yeah, we're good. Let's see if we want the recruit. Now it was the recruit is good. Let's see if we want the full members. I don't know. It became really. It was like a toxic feeling because I
Yeah.
didn't deal with it quickly enough, and I should have maybe put in like everybody has to do this by a certain time, and I didn't do that on time.
You
And
were
I handled
blindsided
that.
by it.
I was blindsided, and I didn't handle it well. And that will happen as a raid leader, or sorry, as a guild leader, whatever, whichever one you are. It will happen that you deal with things poorly. I dealt with that poorly. I didn't see it on time, and it created a bad mood. And then I put up reasons late, like I tried to put up things, okay, during the holidays. I said, okay, now let's everybody try to push. I put up a date. Let's try to make sure that we have this level of artifact by this date, etc. But at that time it was already, it was bubbling.
Yeah, bubbling away, already causing issues.
It was already causing people to be unhappy because it was this whole thing. I'm making an effort, that guy is not.
Do you think one of the flaws to the system was because it was a numeric value that you could actually put a value? I am level 87, you are level 73, I am therefore better.
For the first time, I mean, before you could look at the damage meters and see who was like, oh, on this boss, this person is doing the best and this person is doing the worst, or on that boss, this person, like, you could see on the damage meters for each boss. You could go to the logs and see where people were, but generally it would be different on different bosses. Maybe the top guy would always be the top guy on most bosses, but maybe the bottom guy wouldn't always be the same guy,
But the person who
bosses. But all of a sudden you could just go to WoW Progress and you could just look. Like, look, I'm the best in this guild, or I'm number 4 in this guild, and I am better than all of those other assholes.
Yeah, I have. Even though the person who was possibly the person who was like 10 levels ahead doesn't necessarily perform better than the person who was 10 levels below.
No, but still you had
there wasn't any correlation other than
my effort.
Yeah, like
this measures my effort versus your effort. My effort is higher than yours.
So it was a problem that it was a numerical value that people could quantify.
Yeah, a numerical value of effort. That was. I thought that was.
So do you think the change from artifact power to Azerite power was very good? The fact that the neck, even though it had an eye level, was less of a noticeable.
It was a step up. Yes, it was definitely a step up. I'm gonna say that the Legion thing, it got a lot better once everybody reached, finished leveling their tree. Like, I would say that it calmed down by Nighthold, which is still one of the first raids in the tier. Like, and then those early expansion problems weren't really there anymore. So, but there was a period of unhappiness in our guild, which maybe was the same in other guilds, and I didn't catch that on time.
So you would prefer if they avoided them systems?
Unhappy, it's really hard to make them happy again. You know?
Would you prefer if they didn't introduce these systems again, like the whole artifact Azerite power? Like,
I would quite prefer if we didn't have that kind of system again. Yeah.
But not from a personal standpoint. I mean, from like a guild standpoint. Do you think they're unhealthy for guild morales and things like that?
I think that system was unhealthy for guild morale. I would because I'm not, even if I am speaking from a personal experience that it was unhealthy for us, I still think that it was probably unhealthy for other guilds too. I would prefer to not have that again, because there are people who play more and there are people who play less, and I think that we shouldn't have a system where like it's much better if you have to do something on a weekly basis
Yeah.
than if you have to do something on like a fucking hourly basis. Like
Yeah.
it really felt like it was an hourly. Like you should be. How many times a day did the fucking world quest change?
I think they were resetting every 4 hours or something like that, or every
So
8
4
hours.
you needed to be around and do it. I mean, there
Yeah.
were people who didn't. In the beginning, I think we had people in the guild who were not sleeping
Waking
properly.
up at
Like, they
night,
were
yeah, and they had
waking up at
setting
night and
alarms.
check and putting and doing the quest. And some people who were working could
And they
not do
couldn't do
that.
them when they were at work as well.
Yeah.
Like if they reset while they were at work.
Couldn't do them.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, be up at night. And maybe when they came home from work, maybe they had like a family or something.
Yeah, so they could log in for maybe an hour.
To do. So maybe they could only log in for an hour. So then what do you do?
Yeah.
And I think that felt really demoralizing. It was demoralizing for people who were with a high effort because they felt like all the other people were, and the people with the low effort, they also felt like shit, I'm low effort.
So do you prefer the current system with renown, where like there is a set amount of you can earn renown, a set amount per week, and then as your renown gets higher, you unlock things.
I think this was fine. This system in this expansion,
because a lot of people within the WoW community complain about renown, that the fact that you had to do quests and things like that to unlock it, and that it was gated and things like that. Do you think it's actually better that it's gated to allow for people who have less time to catch up and making sure that you don't have them?
Gated is good. I think gated was good, because if we would have been able to get to 80 renown on the first day, or was 40 the first max? I don't remember.
40 was the first, but yeah.
Yeah, but if we would have been able to get on the first day, I mean, I know there was a lot of cosmetics or stupid things in the renown,
wherever the point was.
All the levels on the tree, soulbind, all this. Is it called soulbinds?
Yeah, the soulbinds.
What's it called? Also all the soulbinds, and I mean that's important. So yeah, I'm really happy that someone wasn't able to grind that on the first week, and someone else was,
left behind.
16 weeks late, someone else caught up. Like that would have been shit.
Yeah. So these systems are better.
Like I don't want us to get a system where you can just, like, personally, as a
guild leader,
as a raid leader, as a guild leader, or whatever. Like that's detrimental for us.
Gating, like the gating of power behind times works better for you in terms of morale and keeping people happy.
Yeah. It's easier.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, the last bit that I think this is my last question. I just wanted to ask about 9.2 and how you. Well, this is sort of a bit of a two-part question, but like 9.2 is coming out soon.
Can I just ask you a question before?
Yeah.
Have we actually talked a lot about recruitment or raid leading? Like, isn't there basic things that we might have missed? Like, how do we recruit?
I thought we discussed.
How do I raid lead?
Well, yeah, I guess we can get that, because this sort of ties in. This actually ties into what I was going to say with 9.2 coming out. How do you prepare for a raid, and how you approach new bosses and things like that?
Okay. When a new raid comes out, I think I have a very, I'm gonna say, casual approach now to the new raid, but I have an approach that is not necessarily fitting for a raid leader.
Okay.
Because it would probably be better if I went to the PTR and I checked it out and I had raided all the bosses already. Like if I had a bunch of experience, it would be better for me as a raid leader.
Yeah.
But I have an attitude where I like the people in our guild. Okay, I'm gonna take a recruitment route around this.
Yeah. That's fine.
Quick. Okay. What we learned when we mass recruited all the Swedish people in the beginning of our career as a guild was that we decided, let's never recruit someone who doesn't feel right again. Like, because there were some people who felt like we didn't necessarily really like them, but the two people that we already had in the guild, they were like, yeah, but they're nice, So we just sort of took their word that these new guys were nice or good enough, or whatever, and then even if not all of us necessarily felt that way about them. So after that, we just made sort of we made a decision that might be different than how other guilds do things, but we made a decision that let's never recruit any assholes again. Like, let's just get nice people. And we decided that everybody, with this, now we're sniffing on the democracy thing again, but we decided that everybody will will have the opportunity to say no.
Okay.
And if one person in our guild says no to a recruit, then we say no as a guild.
Yeah.
That way we don't get anybody who, like if we invite a new guy to the guild and everyone's like, yeah, the guy's really nice, yeah, he's really nice, but you really fucking hate that guy for some reason. Like, maybe he reminds you of some asshole you knew when you were younger, or maybe he, I don't know, there's something
He just
about
rubs you the wrong way, like
rubs you, I'm talking about you now, like you're the guy who doesn't like him, it rubs you the wrong way, right? So you don't like the new guy. Everybody else seems to like him though. You're like, oh my god, can't they see through him? He is so phony. He's so, like, you're thinking all of these things. You're mentioning it like, hey, don't you notice how he did that? And everyone else is like, oh, it's totally fine when he did that. I think it's funny. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of the thing, like his end of his trial, everybody wants to have him. And I'm like, yeah, I like that guy and I want to have him. You don't want to have him. So he becomes full member. And you're really annoyed with him, and he's in the raids now and you're in the raids now, and then you start feeling like, I don't really like the raids anymore. It's not that much fun since that guy joined. And then maybe you were gonna leave. Eventually you leave. You might go somewhere else. Maybe you have a group of friends that are playing and are like, hey, come play with us. And then you think, yeah, I think I'm gonna go play with them. That would probably be fun. So then we lose you over that one guy that we got. So instead of that situation happening, we have decided that if one guy doesn't like the recruit, then we just say no as a guild.
Yeah.
That's probably different from many
a lot of others, yeah.
But because that obviously will create the situation that one guy won't like and everybody else like him. Yeah. It would create that situation, and maybe things would have been fine. Maybe the other guy wouldn't have left regardless.
Yeah.
But that has created a situation where we have not invited obvious assholes to our guild at any point.
Yeah.
There's definitely people who've snuck through the screening process.
Yeah.
That have ended up being guys that we ended.
They've been very quiet, been on their best behavior, and then.
Exactly. We have gotten. Am I allowed to use assholes on this channel, by the way? I've said it several times now.
You've sworn so much. Don't worry. Yes.
Oh my god, I didn't know I had sworn. Whatever. We have gotten quiet assholes into our guild. And later on, we have been able to weed them out. And maybe some of them are still quiet assholes. Who knows? But many of them we had to weed, or a few of them we had to weed out later.
Yeah.
But the most part, we have managed to dodge the obvious ones.
Yeah.
And even the ones that are seemed like they were maybe, like we've managed to dodge them too, because one person in the guild is always going to be vigilant and be like, no, I don't like that guy. So we've managed to skip all of those people.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this?
How you prepare for raids? You were saying how you don't really prepare in a way that you should. You should go on to PTR and.
Good, thank you. Okay, so the thing is that I don't dislike anybody in our guild.
Yeah.
I like everybody in our guild. I have been in the guild always. Therefore, I have handpicked every single person who's in the guild. I mean, I've personally handpicked them, but I've participated in thinking, yeah, I like this guy. So all the guys are guys that I thought when they were trials, I thought I like that guy. Just like anyone else who's been in the guild for a long time has also had the opportunity, has also thought I like that guy.
Yeah.
Right? So when we get to a new raid, and this is my not raid leader approach, is that I like to read. I read up about the bosses. I read about what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
But I don't watch a video. I never watch a video of what the bosses are gonna do.
Yeah.
I don't watch pictures necessarily that much of the instance either, because I want to go inside the instance
and get an experience.
And experience it and be like, whoa, this looks cool. And I want to do it with all of the guys that I like.
Yeah, experience the raid.
I want to have the experience with the guild, and I don't want to have previewed too much.
Yeah, like pull a boss and it was like,
read about all the abilities,
Yeah.
but I will not have seen what they look like until we get there.
When
And that's kind of fine because we always go in on normal mode first. So it doesn't really matter that I didn't see the ability, because the ability will be, it will be quite easy. It's normal mode.
Yeah.
So just knowing what the boss is gonna do is enough, and I don't have to have seen it. Once I've seen it on normal mode with the guild, like then I can go back and read
the
I don't know,
heroic
check out
and
the
mythic
ability more.
mechanics.
But we always go in on normal mode first, so then I get to experience it with everybody. We don't go blind, like I will have read about the bosses, but we go, but I'm kind of blind to the place a little bit.
You want to experience this fun when the boss smacks everyone and you're like, well, that's not how I expected that to work.
Exactly, yes. I want to see, like,
you want that experience.
Like, I want to be able to see, I find that fun.
But if you want someone if you were recommending someone who wanted to raid lead, you would recommend going possibly onto PTR.
Yes, I would obviously not recommend that tactic.
And experiencing the bosses before everyone else, so you can
that would be the best, yes.
Deal with mechanics.
Sure.
Okay.
And one of the things I dislike is if someone has been on the PTR and then they start talking about on the next boss.
But would you recommend that if you were?
I don't really like that, because I don't really want to hear that spoiler ahead of
time. Yeah, like how'd you put it? If you were in a guild that maybe has a similar approach to us, or if you're new to a guild, don't push ideas onto them. Like, try and let them, because it may be they want to work it out for themselves. There's a lot of people who like the puzzle solving and things like that.
I mean, I think if you're in a guild, well, I don't know, I don't have an advice for that. Like, I think our guild is we're probably odd.
Oh, I know we're unique, but
so I have an odd approach to that, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it hasn't necessarily hurt us, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, I think normal mode generally we one shot, or we maybe we have a wipe or something, and then we kill the boss on the next pull, whatever. Like, I really don't think that process hinders us much.
No, because once you understand how the mechanics work, and it's like, for example, sometimes I know that there's some guilds that follow a guide.
But I don't tell anybody to watch a video. We'd never, before we go in on normal mode, like, everyone is allowed to come in, our guild is allowed to come in without having read any kind of tactic. And then we go in on normal mode, and then we get to the first boss, and I try to not say too much tactics either. I try to say the things that are important. I'll be like, well, this boss is kind of like Thaddeus. We have to, split set, whatever, or this boss is a little bit like Patchwork. Like, I will say some reference about the fight, and then I'll say, and he's gonna, but the longer you talk, the more people miss. Like, I don't think anyone is listening to me anymore right now. For example, I've just talked too much here. But if you just say too many tactics, people will
zone you out and don't really.
They will not hear anymore.
Yeah.
So on normal mode, I try to not say that much.
Yeah.
Oh, this is tank and spank. Beware of the. I mean, that's my ambition, is to say this is tank and spank. Beware of standing behind the boss. But I will usually say too much anyway.
But I think there are certain bosses, for example, where you follow a guide, but we edit things quite often. I feel like we edit things to make it fit our group. Do you think that's a good idea?
Tactics in raids. We generally start with whatever is at the moment. It is whatever we suggested on Wowhead. In the past, it has been like tank spots suggestion or icy vein. It has been as well. But at the moment, it is Wowhead. Like, I read the guide, whatever the guide is on Wowhead, whatever they suggest on Wowhead, and that's what we start with. And then we will not stick to that, like, completely. We will instead go, oh wait, no, let's change this, or let's do something else, and then we will edit it to better suit us. Yeah,
I think a good example is I can't remember the name of the boss. There was a boss where we end up Hunt Master, or whatever his name is. I think we did that fight from Nathria, the dog boss. I've forgotten his name. But I think we do that fight very differently to a lot of other guilds. Yeah, I think a lot of other guilds position the boss in the middle of the room and have like soaks and things like that to make sure. and their whole positioning is just completely different to ours. I think we did that boss very different.
I'm totally fine with how we. I think we did that boss really good.
I thought that was a fine boss.
I'm not upset with that at all. Yeah, but there are definitely times when we will end up doing a boss different than some form of tank spot. What was it called?
Yeah.
Fat
Guide.
boss.
Yeah. Don't even know if they do boss videos anymore. I have no idea.
Who is it that we watch now then? I mean, Fat Boss.
I have no idea who people use now.
But like I said, I don't like to watch videos. The only time I will go and watch a video is if I really don't understand how
the way it's written.
Like. And generally, it will be for mythic progress. I will go and look what is it going to look like, because for heroic, I mean, generally.
So maybe that's.
Mode, if we've gone in a little bit blind on normal mode, like I didn't know what it looked like. But then I see it on normal mode. So then when we get to heroic, I generally don't need to go and look at the ability because we saw it already. But for mythic, there's something new, and then maybe I will go on to look at what it looks like with the new thing.
Yeah.
Because on mythic, I don't think it's reasonable to have a blind approach. Like then we don't have a blind approach anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I've already seen the boss and I've seen the raid at that time. So it's only the first. I just want to have the first experience where it's fun to go in with people in the guild. Yeah. But it's because I like, I don't know, I like that experience.
So do you think?
I also would not pug a dungeon in the beginning of the expansion. I would not pug a dungeon. Like I want to go with guildies the first time.
Guildies, yeah. You want to experience it with the
guildies.
people that.
I want to go like, wow, this is pretty, or wow, this looks shit. You know, like I want to be around the people that I like.
Yeah. So do you agree with how do you put it? Do you take that into account when you're recruiting and things like that? Like, is that the process you go through when recruiting? Do you try to find people that are nice that sound nice on their
our guild? Like how we have done things is that being nice has generally been more important than knowing how to play.
Like you can teach someone how to play.
Exactly, you can teach someone how to play.
I like those players personally.
Where someone has been in the guild on trial, and they have played really well, but we didn't like them, and they didn't pass trial because we didn't like them, and that's it. Like, and I'm really happy we didn't get those people, because if we would have just been a different,
it'd be a different atmosphere.
It wouldn't have felt as fun to raid if you had a bunch of people in the raid that you didn't really like. So I really like that we don't do that. And why don't we do that? Well, I guess that's my decision. I guess that has ended up being my decision or something. Or something that I guess that's a preference of mine why that has happened.
I guess the moral of the story is be nice. You get further.
For me, the moral of the story is be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in our guild we also favor the people, it might not sound like that now that I'm talking, but I think we favor the people who start off a little bit hesitant or quiet.
Yeah.
Like being quiet in our guild is a good idea in the beginning. Like, and coming in and be like, hey guys, and then just taking over. It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because that's like, who the fuck is that kind of feel? Oh, I swore. I didn't mean to. But like,
don't worry. You've done it a lot. So
why is this person so loud to begin with? Like, it's much better if you kind of go in and feel out, like, what are these guys? What are the guild like? This is my advice to anybody who's looking for a guild. Be chill in the beginning. Get the vibe of the guild. Like, be a bit silent. Listen to who's talking or and how are they doing things. Don't come in and try to
fix the guild,
but come in and try to take a spot. Like, wait and see what spot you have.
Earn it rather than take it.
Earn the spot rather than take the spot.
Okay.
That's my opinion on how people should do when they're looking for a new guild. I would also look into the guild if I was looking for a new guild. I would look them up on different places. I would check on.
So a bit like
talk to the people in the guild before I applied, something like that.
So what avenues do you usually take for recruitment? For example, I know we're looking for a mage. How would you find a mage?
Okay, we use Mob Progress, where we check who is who's looking for a guild on our server.
Yeah.
We use that. That's step number 1. At the moment, I have not looked today, But at the moment, it's hard to find people on my progress because the people who are listed are have better progress than us.
Yeah.
And when that happens, like it's really hard to make people, step down to lower progress. That doesn't generally happen.
Yeah, it's
Like,
usually the other
killed
way.
7 bosses. We're a guild who've killed 4. Would you like to join us? Like it's generally not how what works.
Yeah.
So
it's slim pickings at the moment because it's
hard for
towards
us
the
to
end
do
of the
something on our
tier, and
progress. We also advertise on our realm forum. Like our guild is on Silver Moon, so we advertise on the Silver Moon forum. We and we have a Raider IO looking for guild thing open as looking for guild. What am I saying? Looking for
raiders.
Raiders. Yeah, recruitment thing on Raider IO. I would say that all of them generally work. We've recruited people that I've seen our advertising on the Silver Moon forum. We have recruited people who have seen us on One Progress. I don't know that we've ever recruited anybody who's seen us on Raider IO, but whatever. But the other two definitely work.
Have we ever used, because it's very common for a lot of realms to recruit through trade chat?
We have tried to use trade chat back in World of the Draenor when we were desperate within Buccaneers. We also ventured into trade chat. I find it personally, I don't want to use the word tacky, but I find it odd, to use trade chat because it's just some random chat that just passes by really quickly. And if I was looking for a guild, I wouldn't be like, well, I guess I'm gonna check trade chat, and then I just look in trade chat and just pick the first guild that rolls by. I would have gone to our progress instead, or I would have checked. And I would have checked the realm forum and seen if anyone was advertising there and what they were writing and whatever to get a feel for the people. I would not have looked in trade chat, but we have advertised in trade chat as well, and I think we got 2 or 3 people through trade chat. We also got a lot of really weird. I got a lot of weird whispers from trade chat.
Yeah.
I mean,
invite.
So if you
inv plus
examples, did you say that?
No, inv plus.
Yeah, inv plus. Yeah, we got inv plus. Like people who just whisper that inv plus. Or just like hi, and then hi, and then inv. Like that's it. Like those kind of conversations, or just people who just start talking to you and who are weird.
Yeah.
Like in general, I would just direct them to go and I mean.
We have an application process, right?
We have an application process. I would just direct them to go and write an application.
Yeah.
Is that good to have an application process? I think that scares some people off. I think that weeds some people out that don't want to do an application. There's going to be people who we have totally missed out on because they did not want to go and write an application to us.
Do you see that as a good thing?
I see that as sometimes a good thing because I think
it shows a level of commitment.
I think the people that it weeds out might also be the people it's like a Venn diagram. The people that we weed out, I think, overlap a lot with the people that we don't want to have in the guild.
Yeah, it's the inv plus people. I don't want to write an application, just invite me, and then...
Exactly, that guy doesn't want to write an application, but I don't want to have an inv please guy in the guild.
Yeah.
So then you're already, I already weeded that guy out.
Yeah. Okay, but that's basically our application process, right? Is that you fill out our application on the forum.
You fill it out on the forum, and most likely you're gonna get
depending on what you apply as.
It's gonna be yes. If you apply as something that we already have, 2 tanks, for example. If you have 2 tanks and you apply as a tank, then you won't get it. Then we will say sorry, but no thank you. But most of the time, we will give the person a trial if they apply on our forum. Depends. Sometimes if you write hardly anything.
I was going to say, how important would you say the application is?
Apply by or whatever. Then you don't. How important is it? I think it's important. It's your first impression. Just don't have to write the book, but you should write something.
Put some effort into it.
Yeah, for us, you have the opportunity to write a lot. Like you can write a lot in our applications.
Yeah.
I don't think that you necessarily have to write a lot. Write some stuff at least.
Yeah, make sure you actually answer all the questions and.
Exactly. Answer all the questions. Answer with full sentences. Like, try to have correct grammar if you could. I think. I mean, that's my opinion. Like, punctuate.
If you can't write correct grammar
reason.
like myself, get somebody else to do it for you.
Yes,
Just get somebody to double check it.
Write it in Word and then have like a Word do a spell check for you.
Or get
So you don't
somebody
look
to double
stupid.
check it.
Because if you're applying as a rouge, I mean, that's stupid. If you say, I'm a rouge, you know, something.
You're a
instead of
color?
robe. Exactly. Just do the
Okay.
spell check. Just make sure that you don't write something stupid.
Yeah, get it checked.
Yeah. I think. And if you put in, if you write, if it takes you a little bit of time to write it, if you spend 20 minutes doing the application, it will look nicer than if you just spent 5 minutes doing it.
Formatting goes a long way.
Yeah, that little extra time will go a long way. And the guild that you did that towards will notice that you spent a little bit of time, and then that will make them feel more positive about you. Regardless of what kind of guild it is, they will feel more positive about you if they notice that you spent a little bit of time on that application.
It shows that commitment rather than
exactly. Or it shows that you're interested.
Yeah.
And not it shows that you're interested.
Yeah.
That's my tip. Spend a little bit of time.
Okay.
Whatever guild you applied, if there's any kind of application thing, spend a little bit of time. If they want to interview you, be nice during the interview.
Yeah. Make sure you take the time to answer any questions they do have.
Yeah, like don't do a dungeon at the same time as doing that interview. Like try to just be focused on the interview, you know? Don't be like, oh yeah, sorry, I'm in the middle of a fight, I can't really listen to the question right now, or whatever. You know, don't be that guy.
Run around Oribus, do laps.
Run around Oribus while you're doing your interview.
That way you have your information as well. Access to your character.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions, both of which are going to be related to 9.2.
Okay.
Well, one's actually related to 9.25.
Yeah.
Seeing as we got some information yesterday, but I'll save that one till last. I was going to ask...
Is it possible for me to just have like a 30-second break? Can I?
Yeah.
Be back in
Go.
I'm going to go and be back in 30. Be right back.
Second break.
Hello, sorry.
Hello.
What were we saying?
I just wanted to ask about 9.2, and we've discussed how you prepare for raids and things like that. What I was wanting to ask is, with the introduction of tier tokens, do you think these are positive for guild leadership and raid leadership, such as the fact that they're by the looks of things, the tokens are going to be class based, so they're not going to have the original 3 classes on them. It looks like they're going to be individual classes.
I saw that too, yeah.
Do you think this is a negative or a positive towards dealing with them in a loot? Like, how will you approach these tokens?
Approach that differently than other loot. We might approach that differently than other loot. Do I think that other guilds should? I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I think the tier is it's gonna feel like an extremely important piece of loot. And if you have a system where your raiders will, like, one guy gets a tier item, the other guy gets a regular item, then the first guy gets a tier item, and then the other guy gets a regular item, and the third guy gets another tier item. Like, one guy gets 3 pieces of tier, and another guy doesn't. Like, another guy that could have used the same tier didn't get any. It's gonna feel unfair. Now, that could be how the personal loot drops, though. So you can't do anything about personal loot. But I mean, if other loot that your guild rolls out, or that people in the guild don't want, and that gets rolled out, I guess it will be somewhat important that you deal with it in a fairly fair way. But at the same time, what are you going to take into consideration? Maybe Bob let's say that Bob has already gotten 4 tier pieces on his own,
Yeah.
and maybe Bill, who plays the same class, let's say they're both druids. Bill, he hasn't gotten a single tier piece. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do when the 5th tier piece drops? Should the guy get it so he gets five pieces, or should Bill get it so he gets his first? Or should that be like a should we subjectively decide this? Is that the right
Yeah.
thing to do?
I'm guessing you're saying that like the 4 pieces that Bob got are not the optimal pieces. He wants the helm instead of, say, the gloves.
Maybe he just wants it then.
Yeah, maybe it's actually his best stats.
Yeah, maybe it's better stats. Yeah, because you don't need to have all 5 pieces, but maybe it's still an upgrade for Bob, and Bob still wants it, or maybe Bob is planning to wear another piece as his offset piece, right?
Do you think the fact that they're single class tokens will cause issues for groups, especially like us? We're heavily weighted towards certain classes.
We're gonna have some classes that have to get it all on their own because we only have one of them, and we're gonna have some people who get to share.
I was gonna say I am one of 2 monks.
Share? Yeah, you're one of 2 monks. I guess that would be better than being alone.
Yeah. Like if we had a mage, that mage is going to be on their own and therefore have to get it on their own. Do you think that it would be better if they shifted them to...
we have 1 warrior, so warrior's going to have to get it alone.
Yeah.
We have 1 warlock. Warlock is going to have to get it alone. What else? 1 rogue, 1...
Do you think
1 DK
shifting to the old Conqueror Vanquisher token system would actually benefit most people?
Maybe that would have been better. I think so. Yeah, I think if you could have shared it with more people, it makes more sense to me that you could have shared it with more people, because it's going to have. At the moment, it seems like we have a lot of druids in the guild, and with a lot of druids in the guild, that means that we're going to be gearing up quicker, I guess.
If one person manages to get them all.
Druid tokens that we're going to be like, okay, disenchanting the druid token, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants
and that's going to be done before, for example, the
warrior gets his set. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you would say it'd probably be better if they were on the old Conqueror, Vanquisher, Protector tokens.
Yeah. But about rerolling, I didn't say this, but of course, you might not want people to reroll, but I always think that you should let them. Like, you need to try to let them if you can. But, I mean, if I got to have my will, and I got to be, like, if I got to be God and decide what everybody played, then maybe people wouldn't be playing what they're playing right now. I'm just saying that much, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to have your choice. Also, people wouldn't be taking breaks randomly if I got to have my will. Like, if I got to decide, then people would be very consistent in how they signed up for raids and things like that.
And
I mean, that's one of the biggest problems that you have as a raid leader, is that when there's inconsistencies in how people sign up.
Okay.
Like, if Bob always signs for 3 raids every week, and then all of a sudden
stop signing.
Not the requirement. Let's say that's not the requirement. We have 3 raids a week, so Bob always signs for 3. That's not the requirement. He still does that. He's always available. All of a sudden, Bob is only available for 2. That makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So even if there's nothing wrong with Bob being available for only 2, that's still okay within the rules. It still makes for a difference in the raid team.
Yeah.
If several people do that at the same time, then you're suddenly low on people, because people who used to always be available are suddenly not always available, and then you don't have enough people. So if you have to recruit for that situation, then you need more raiders in the raid team. And then later on, when Bob and Bill and the other people who used to always be available, who have had a period of not being, when they go back to being always available, then suddenly you have too many people in the raid team, right? So like, it was a period of time when 29 raiders seemed reasonable for a 20-man guild. And then all of a sudden now it seems like, okay, actually maybe we should only have 22, because that's how people sign up now. Like,
our healers are all of a sudden signing up loads, so we will one less.
Fluctuation in how people sign up, that's actually annoying.
You want people to be consistent.
And if I got to have my way, people would just be super consistent.
Yeah.
That wasn't the question though. It was tier tokens.
Yes.
Probably be better if we got to share the token.
Vanquisher. And do you think it's bad that you need to have acquired the token before you're able to trade it? So you have to have acquired all 5 pieces in order to be able to trade each piece. So like you need to have
It's
had
kind of
the
stupid
helm,
that you have had to find,
even
I
if you
guess.
have a better helm. Like
Yeah,
I don't
then
want the
it's
helm. I have the helm that I want. It's a higher eye level. Can I not just give away this tier helm?
Yeah, it's a bit stupid.
Yeah. But I guess the idea is to stop. This is one of the issues that I find is that, again, I feel like top end guilds is to stop top end guilds from funneling loot onto, like, because the tier sets are really powerful. It means that you can just gear up all your people that you don't want the tier set on with higher eye level, and then funnel all your tier sets onto the people that you do want to have the tier sets.
Yeah.
I do find that top end guilds break the game for other people.
Yeah, wasn't that going to be a topic of another podcast though?
That is another topic, but
yeah, but sure, that might be a reason why they have done it that way. Yeah, but in general, they have. I mean, they have done it that way now with loot, that you have to have the eye level before you're allowed to pass it to someone else, right? They've had that rule there the whole time.
yeah.
So now that they had to add tier items, I guess that's how they did it.
Yeah.
I don't know that they did it. I don't think they did that with the tier items. I don't think they had a new thought with the tier items. I think that thought was already there with the previous stuff. You're not allowed to trade a helmet that you don't want to have.
Well, you are if you have a higher eye level.
You have a higher eye level, yes, but you're not.
But you can't do that with tier. If you have a higher eye level helm, you still can't trade the tier helm.
Yeah, but if we're counting tier as something else,
It's yeah, and you're classing it as the highest eye level, yeah.
That type of thing before you're allowed to trade that type of thing. So it's the same. It's just if we count tier as a different animal, then whatever.
Okay, and then the last subject sort of thing that I wanted to discuss was the cross faction.
Yeah, the cross faction thing.
Yeah, that's coming out in 0.5. Do you think this is going to be a boon to, especially playing Alliance rather than Horde? Whereas Horde is generally the higher end, is generally, and even the mid, is populated heavily by Horde guilds. Do you think this is a boon to Alliance guilds, or do you think it's actually going to push more Alliance players to go Horde because they can cross realm with the Horde guilds, realize that, hey, I can actually get better progress if I just switch to Horde?
Could be that's the development, like that more Alliance characters swap to Horde. It could be. I think it's gonna have. I think it's not gonna have that big of an influence. To be fair, I don't think it's gonna be.
Do you think you could possibly recruit for it?
I think it will. Yes, it will help us with recruitment because there has been moments where, a few moments when someone from a Horde guild, like right now we have a recruit who used to play Horde, so he couldn't come along to a raid with us
until he race changed.
In general, if someone is on a different realm, invite them along to a raid with us before they pay to swap to our realm, so they don't have to start their trial, but they can come along to a raid so they can see if they want to spend that money and come with us. I mean, that's what we do now. If the person is Horde, they can't. They have to first swap faction to be able to come along to a raid. And with this new system, we could take along a Tauren or a Troll or whatever, you know, to the raid, and it would still work. I personally think that they should do this with guilds. Like the guilds should be able to be cross faction. That's my opinion. I think that would help. I think at this point, like, you could just ignore the lore. I mean, there must have been lore to begin with that said that gnomes couldn't be hunters, or there was only shamans on one faction and the paladins were on the other, and we've broken all of that stuff ages ago. Gnomes can be hunters and
Tauren can be paladins.
Exactly. Like, people can be paladins on both sides. So whatever lore considerations they had to begin with, they've just constantly taken it away, right?
They've worked around it.
I mean, we were going back in time to different
timelines,
or going into space, or whatever it is that we're doing, right? So
so maybe cross-faction guilds wouldn't be a bad thing.
Cross-faction guilds should be a thing in the future, where you pick what faction your guild is. Like if our guild is an alliance guild,
Yeah, and then
if
you
I play a
compete.
horde character, then just like swapping covenant, I could swap
Yeah,
and align with the alliance instead of aligning
yeah,
myself with horde. That could be that I'm a traitor to horde or whatever that could be, but that
yeah,
means I swap my home cities to be the alliance cities, and then I get to, if I go to a raid where there's an alliance story in the raid, I get to play the alliance side
yeah,
story, like on gunship in ICC or like in Dasara lore or whatever it is. I
yeah,
get to play the alliance side, and then if I think fuck this shit, I want to go back to horde, then I go somewhere and talk to someone and I
yeah.
change
And you
my
can do
allegiance
vice versa.
back, and you can do the same thing with alliance characters, and that means that an alliance character can swap to horde and then be in a horde guild,
Yeah,
or a horde character can swap to alliance and be in an alliance guild. I think they should do that in the future.
but then maybe the hedge, but
Yeah,
it
but
it'd
we
make
would have to,
racial
that means that
balance
a
a
lot
lot
of people would
easier.
be trolls. A lot of alliance people
Yeah,
would be trolls.
there'd be a lot
That's
of
what,
alliance trolls because
yeah, that's what would happen
everyone
sometimes.
wants berserking.
Yes.
But maybe it
And
would make it a lot easier to balance racials, because at the moment they're having to balance them between factions, not only in PvE but in PvP as well, which means that things like berserking isn't actually that great in PvP because you don't actually get as much value out of it, because as soon as you pop it, you can just CC the person. Oh, you've just lost all the value of berserking. Whereas something like the orc racial or a lot of the human racials and things like that are a lot more valuable in PvP rather than PvE.
yeah, I think I think that you should be able to.
Cross faction guilds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything you want to add as a?
I don't know. I thought of earlier the thing about, have we said how we rate lead or how I
Well, we've approached how you
approach,
raid lead.
but
Like your raid lead, like maybe we should touch on how you approach when we get to a boss. Like you've explained how you approach a boss, but maybe how you actually deal with the boss during the boss. Like we've explained how you deal with someone who may be struggling with mechanics on a boss.
yeah. On the bosses, I delegate sometimes. Some things I call, some things I make other people call, some things other people call naturally. Like generally, the tanks call stuff, or one of the tanks, generally you, basically, call things naturally. And but then there's other things that I think should be called. Either I call it or I let someone else call it.
Or you ask somebody else.
Yeah, I ask somebody else to call it.
Healer cooldowns are usually another thing.
Healer cooldowns, I don't deal with those. I let, at the moment, we have somebody assigned who deals with those. If that person isn't there, I sort of assign another person to be the one who deals with those. Um, yeah, I don't do the healer cooldowns.
Yeah, it's something that I think maybe we're a little bit weak on healer cooldowns. That I think, because I don't always think they're best assigned. Personally, I think sometimes it's better to, if we can have someone who could do them on the fly. I think on the fly cooldowns is so much more powerful, because certain cooldowns are better in different places and things like that.
Yeah.
That if somebody could call perfect
The best thing would
cooldowns,
be if that was
but
a healer.
yeah, it's got to be a healer, because
The person that I have in mind for that is yeah, I see someone that we could have in mind for that, but it wouldn't work right now
yeah.
in our rates because that person is currently busy.
But on the fly
I-
cooldowns are definitely a lot more. If you can assign cooldowns on the spot, like use a
Yeah.
link here, that sort of thing, I think it's a lot more powerful than having them pre-assigned.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, is there anything?
Some of the cooldowns, at least. I mean, some you
Yeah.
can pre-assign all.
Oh, I think if
yeah.
the fight is very very choreographed, to be exact. The problem is it doesn't always deal with mistakes and things like that, or when the mechanic isn't handled 100% perfectly. It doesn't always, like, hey, I think we should have revivaled here, but it's like I can't revival now because revival's actually assigned later. It's like things like that I feel like it's a lot better to have the flexibility, but it's a lot harder to do. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add?
I thought of something while you were talking now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I zoned out a little bit while you were talking, but I was agreeing with you. But I thought of something else that ahead of time before we had this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I thought about that. I don't know that you need to have like leaders. I don't know that you need to be able to be a raid leader or a guild leader. I don't think that you necessarily need to have like typical leader skills or anything ahead of time. I think anybody can be a raid leader or a guild leader, like, or you can become a raid leader or a guild leader. I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that because I don't think that I am a leader type. Although I think I am a leader type in this guild maybe, but I don't think I'm necessarily a leader type otherwise.
Oh, there
Like,
was.
I can even back that up with saying that I've done a personality test before I was a guild leader or really. So pre 14 years ago,
Yeah.
I did a personality test in school or at university. I did a personality test, and the test was whatever. There's thousands of personality tests that you can do.
Yeah.
But this particular personality test was like you answered a bunch of questions, yes or no, I think it was, and then
Yeah.
at the end it was 100 questions or 150 questions or 200. It was a bunch of questions at least, and then at the end you were supposed to find out if you like there was 3 scales that you could be high or low on,
Yeah.
and it was something about if you wanted to belong or to like to groups, or if you wanted to invite people to be something that had to do with being invited or letting other people invite you.
Yeah.
And then there was another scale that had to do with if you wanted to be led or if you wanted to lead. And then there was something else that had to do with openness, if you wanted to speak openly about things or other people would speak openly
Yeah.
with you. And I can tell you that on the test I did not want to invite anyone, and I did not want to be invited. I
Don't
was
like
super
people.
low. I did not like people. I did not want to be led by anyone, nor did I want to lead anyone else. So I was low on that too. Again, didn't like people. But once when I was talking to people, I apparently wanted to be open, and I wanted other people to be open with me.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, did not fit into any mold. And when you didn't fit into any of their pre-assigned molds, you were the rebel. So I was the rebel.
That suits you actually. I think
To
that suits you.
personality test. But I'm just saying, clearly I did not want to be like I have previous proof
That
of
you're not a leader.
one test showed that I was not a leader type.
Nor was
I aspiring to be one.
I
Until
have.
this happened. That I've been a leader here for 14 years. So
I like I said before we started, I had a document that got deleted, and therefore I forgot some of my notes. But I just remembered one that I actually really wanted to cover was very quickly. Do you think guild events, such as we have done previously, such as gnome races, PvP events, and things like that, do you think they're very good for group morale and keeping?
I think it's super good for group morale if you do other things outside of
and
like
game nights and things like that.
Yeah, if you have funny things, if you can create funny events, that will be good for the guild. Yeah. Even if not everybody goes to them, if you can host something stupid or like a
anniversary
level
events.
Race. Exactly. A level 1 race or a game night where you play, Cards Against Humanity or some drawing game or something.
Yeah.
Like some form of Pictionary thing online.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that doesn't have anything to do with World of Warcraft or things within World of Warcraft, like
PvP events,
like a thing where we duel each other, or a thing where you race somewhere.
Yeah,
I think all of those things are like there is like I remember there's a game where you jump off Thunder Bluff. Everybody jumps off Thunder Bluff, and someone like you have to try to hit the marker.
Yeah, and whoever's closest.
Whoever lands closest wins, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like that. Like I don't remember what that's called, but you just jump with cows and just try to land on a specific spot after you, with with low level characters. Obviously not high level druids. No. You can just fly.
Flight form.
Yeah, you just flight form and land exactly. Not that, but something else where you just land and go, oh, this person is the close. Yeah. I don't know. Like stupid little events, I think help if you. Yeah. I'm pro that.
You're pro. I was gonna just
say. We sometimes do them. We probably don't do them frequently enough.
Yeah. You think we should?
We should do them more. There's things that we could do better. There's definitely things that I could do better. I have flaws as a guild leader, and I have flaws as a raid leader. And And maybe if we had more officers, there would be someone who covered those flaws. So
Yeah.
maybe someone else would have strengths where I don't have them.
Hmm.
So in one way, maybe we would be better off if we had officers. At the same time, it it makes it really easy to make decisions if there's only one person making the
Yeah.
decision because you don't have to discuss it that much. I don't know.
Okay. I think I'm gonna open it up for questions.
Okay, yeah.
See if anyone has any questions that they want to ask you.
Was this
So,
not, my first question is, was this not supposed to take half an hour?
shh. Okay, I said 45 minutes. I said between half an hour and an hour, and okay, it took nearly 3. But it's the first time doing it, so.
Yes. And like I said in the beginning, I'm long-winded, so.
But yeah, we're just opening it up for questions. You can just type them in chat, and if anyone's got any questions, I can ask.
Some people have asked questions meanwhile, right? And you've already asked.
Yeah, there was only
Some
one.
people. How many viewers is there even?
Luria did not tell. Currently there's 9.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Luria didn't tell any stories. Not really. She was very well behaved.
Yeah. By stories, they mean like I did not go into like details about some specific recruit or
Yeah.
and tell all about the time. Remember the time with the French tank?
It's fine.
I didn't tell any of those stories.
It'd be nice if somebody could. It's fine. She won't get sidetracked. Like, if you have any questions that you want to ask, the raid leader of 14 years.
The question is why? I don't know have the answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm wondering too. Why? No. Why? Why have I been doing this? Am I? If someone is asking, am I on medication? No, I'm not on medication. I should be maybe, but I'm not.
Yeah. If you were going to respec for raiding, what class would you pick?
Me, if I was gonna be something else. Oh, yeah, that's really hard. Okay, I actually really liked. There was a period of time in Wrath of the Lich King. So we're obviously going really far back here. So, but whatever, I do that. So there was a period of time in Wrath of the Lich King when we actually raided with 2 groups. We were 10 men, but there were so many people that wanted to raid that we, for a period of time, had 2 groups.
Yeah.
But we weren't exactly 20 people. So there was a few of us who raided twice. Like we raided with both groups. One group raided 2 days a week. The other group raided 2 days a week, I think. So it's like Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, Monday. And I raided with both groups at that time.
Yeah.
And I raided as a resto shaman on my other. I raided as a healer on the other. And I thought I thought raiding as a healer or leading as a healer was fine. Now I think I would want to play one of the. I don't want to play like I would not play druid healer. So, but maybe
shaman, maybe.
I mean, I liked shaman healer at that time. Would I
so
wanna...
maybe shaman. You'd have to try some of the other classes.
Yeah, I would have to try some of the other classes. Like I don't really play a lot of alts. I haven't played a lot of alts in a long time. So, yeah, maybe shaman healer.
What made you want to start raid leading and be a GM?
It just the person probably missed the beginning.
Yeah, it was covered, but it just happened.
Like by accident. Like I was in a previous guild where someone else was in charge of the raid leading. Like they raided a little bit. It was a casual guild, and they raided a little bit. Someone else was in charge of the raid leading. Then that person quit, and new officers of that guild was taking over, but they didn't really know what we were doing. So I was sort of helping because I didn't mind saying things out loud. Like I wasn't afraid of talking. So I just said, okay, this is what we have been doing. This boss. So I think maybe it started like that. I said, this is what we have been doing. And then I mean, we were so bad that we needed raid leading on the trash. So I was going, yeah, okay, we're going to see, okay, if you see that one, then, and I would mark, kind of thing. Like it just happened that way, I think, that I said what we were doing. And okay, beware now, this trash is going to pull us in and you have to run away. Like I would be, it pulls us in, run away. Like I would be that person who So I was doing it because if nobody was doing it, we were just dying on the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it started. We were dying on trash. Someone
Okay.
had to talk. That became me. So it was an accident.
Is it
And then we started this guild, and then obviously that just continued.
is it
And why I was a guild leader in this guild, that just happened by it was a joke. My character was a joke. It was a joke guild, and then that fitted.
we're taking name suggestions because it was a joke name.
As a guild leader, yes, we're still taking suggestions of who should be the guild leader. Sure.
Yeah, and as a new name for the guild because
Yes,
the name
it's
was
still
a joke.
guild. It's all a joke. It's all a joke. 14 years joke. No, but it just happened to become a real guild.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily intended that way to begin with. And I think that maybe in the beginning I didn't see myself as the guild leader. Yeah, I didn't really see myself as a guild leader for a really long time. I just saw myself as an officer. At this point, I'm still not 100% sure I am the guild leader. It's been 14 years. I'm not entirely sure if I'm the guild leader or not. Yeah, that's my answer.
Is it difficult to balance guild leading responsibilities with real life ones?
Yes, of course. But what makes it really easy is that I've decided not to have a real life. So then
then it's a lot easier.
Yeah, it just eases everything up.
Then I've got one about 20-man mythic raid size. Would you change it or how it functions? We discussed that a little bit earlier, but if you want to answer something short and brief.
Change it from 20
yeah.
to something else.
We discussed it earlier, but
I actually think that 20 is a decent size. I think if it was 25 men, like I said earlier, I think that 10, when it was 10 and 25 men, I really liked raiding as a 10-man guild. I thought that was nice. But I see the limitations that if 10-man raiding was the thing, there would be a big limitation on the fact that there's more than 10 classes in the game. And if they thought of, I mean, there's going to be many things where they have to think, okay, but many raid groups won't have a class like that, or many raid groups won't have a class that can do that. Like if it was 10 people, there would be many things that we couldn't do, or that it would be hard for them to make a boss where something was needed. So I think a bigger raid size is needed. 25 or 20, I mean, I don't know that it matters. It's 25 or 20 people, but I think 20 is fine.
Yeah, and I got another one. What's your favorite boss that you've progressed?
Oh no! I should have thought about this ahead of time. What is the favorite? My favorite bosses are the stupid bosses. Like the ones that are a little bit gimmicky, or the ones that have like a stupid twist them, where you end up laughing at things. Like I remember the first time we ever progressed on XT, whatever it's called after that, XT in Uldor. Like the voice of XT was so stupid that I remember laughing at the voice of XT. That was fun because it had a stupid voice. But that's not a good answer, because I mean, otherwise it wasn't that fun to. And also fun bosses when it has been hard and you've suddenly like killed it when it was hard. Or when you felt like actually we were doing this, like we have a good tactic here. Like I remember we had a good tactic on. I felt like we had a good tactic on Manoroth, and I saw in that raid, and I felt like we did really good on Manoroth Mythic. I thought that was good progress.
Okay, and I think.
But I don't know. I don't think I have an answer about the favorite boss.
You said a few, so.
I said a few bosses, yes, but I don't think XT doesn't really count.
And
but
we probably
bosses
got
that are a little bit gimmicky. I often like I really like the what is it called? The Mechatork boss in Dasara Lore.
Yeah,
I liked him.
Where you shrunk down and people stepped on you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like Rocalo in this raid. I really like Rocalo with the spinning things on the floor. I think he's really fun.
Yeah.
I know it's an annoying boss, but I like Rocalo.
But yeah.
It's a stupid voice as well.
We've got time for one more. And then I think let's call it here. Have you ever thought about quitting WoW or disbanding the guild?
I've never thought about disbanding the guild. However, now this is going to sound I don't know how to answer. Like, I don't know what would happen with the guild if I quit. I think the guild would be in trouble if I quit, kind of. And I don't know how to say that without sounding like I'm important or I'm like, ooh, she's really.
If I had
I don't
access
know,
to
like
the
I'm
Moonkin
ego
head, I
baiting
would have
or
made it
something.
bigger then.
What did you say?
If I had access to the Moonkin head, I would have made it bigger then.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I don't know how to say that without sounding big head.
No,
But I
but
don't
you
actually
are
know.
key. I think you are
We are
key.
a particular guild. I think we have an odd guild, and I think the odd guild is somehow being molded around me somehow. I think if you don't like me, you probably are not in this guild because I'm audible here and I make all the decisions and I do all of the things. So if I just plop disappeared, I guess that could be really hard. And I don't know how easy that would be for someone else to just go over. I think if I disappeared for a period, it would probably be fine. But if I just quit the game, I don't know.
You
Thing
do
is, I've
that
never
in the
disappeared
summer.
for a period either. Like I've never been gone. I've been gone for like a raid here or there. Like my computer broke or I wasn't
Yeah.
here or something and it was fine. But I've never been completely gone. Have I thought about quitting the? Yeah, sure, I've thought about quitting the game. Not every day, but I've thought about it. But I've never thought about it seriously. Yeah, I've thought about it.
Okay. But I think that's a good time to end. I want to thank you for doing this with me. It was much appreciated.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for having me.